We're all here. It is 8:31, so we'll call the Finance Committee public meeting to order. This is going to be done under the governor's order for the open meeting law amendments, and we're going to do this by Zoom. I'm going to ask everybody, if you have a question or if you want to speak, use the raise your hand function so that we can see you, just in case there's more people on the screen than we have. And we're going to try to get through this. We have a packed agenda this morning. We have a lot going on, so we're going to jump right into it. So the first thing I'd ask is for a motion to open the public hearing. Oh, go ahead.
It is not a public hearing. It is a public meeting.
Oh, so I don't need to call it. All right. So
That is correct.
Thank you for correcting me. So we won't do that.
Yes.
And then I would entertain a motion then to wish Sue Robbins a very, very happy birthday.
So moved.
Happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy
Guys,
birthday.
Same day. You're the
birthday.
same day as my son.
It's a great day.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to welcome Mary and Evan here. Thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. First up for our budget reviews are sewer and
Mark, I'm going to
DPW.
interrupt just for a second. Do you have to
Please.
read the whole open
Nope,
meeting?
I don't do that. You don't have to do that. I'm not going to do that.
You don't? Okay.
Nope.
I'm just so used to hearing it. I thought you
I
had
know.
to. Do
It's a waste of time in my estimation. It's obvious we're on Zoom. Go ahead, Sue.
It is in the meeting packet on the website, and it is also on the agenda.
Thank you. So Paul's here. We have sewer and DPW. So I am going to share my screen and we'll get right started on the, I lost what I had. Where did it go? There it is. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to start with the sewer budget. Let me get it up here. I think we're going to start with the sewer budget.
Yes.
Yeah, it's at the very end. Go to the very end of it.
Page
All right, so
192.
Paul, it's all yours if you want to walk us through it, make a presentation, and then we'll jump in and answer questions.
So the FY22 budget for the sewer department is nearly identical to the FY21 budget. We don't expect any major changes in any of the operation. So really, it's literally there's almost no change. $5,000, I think, or $6,000 with change. So the budget is largely driven, personnel costs, sludge disposal, energy, and chemicals are the big drivers of the budget. Along with, the sewer rates set to cover the debt service along with the O&M. The debt service is about 1.8 million for the current fiscal year. But other than that, it's a very straightforward, similar to the last 10 or 15 years.
So Paul, we're still paying a portion of your salary in this budget as well as in the DPW budget, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, because part of my job is still superintendent of the sewer department and the head of the DPW. So yeah, portion from each.
Okay. So when Carter presented the original budget to us for the overall budget, we talked about the whole enterprise fund. And I know, Evan, you and Mary were supposed to be looking into that. Have you had an opportunity to work that out and figure out exactly what we need to do?
Yes, Mary, do you want to speak to that?
Hi, yeah, so in reviewing the sewer enterprise fund, I'm not gonna make too many changes. It's just too much right now. I'm just inundated with, I got the FY20 audit going on. I got the OPEB audit going on. And there's just too many moving parts. And I really need more time to dig into the sewer budget and the indirect cost. So my goal will be for the next fiscal year to cull out some of the costs in the general fund and put it directly into the sewer enterprise fund.
So how are we dealing with the budget this year? Are there overlapping costs within the operating budget and within the sewer budget? I mean, are we accounting for it? And I know there's a lot of work to do, and I completely understand why you're going to wait a fiscal year, but I just want to make sure that we're not double counting any money and that we are covering the budget appropriately.
Yes, there's no overlap in the costs in the budget.
Okay. All right, thank you very, very much. Paul, how much is the debt service this year for the sewer?
It's about 1.8 million.
Okay.
And that's
Is there
for the-
gonna be an increase in rates this year?
No, our goal is to keep the rate what it is now for hopefully around 10 years. That was sewer commissioner's desire back in 2012, when we, got the permit. And we knew the approximate cost of all the improvements. So we set a goal. We're actually 75 cents a thousand gallons less than that goal. And with the connection fees and the amount of building going on in town right now, we're confident we can maintain that level.
So I take it, Mary, you and Evan are comfortable that the rate set right now is sufficient to cover the budget that they're presenting to us?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, I'll stop babbling. Does any members of the finance committee have any questions for Paul on the sewer budget? Go ahead, Barry.
Okay. Paul, with the implementation of the new wastewater treatment plant, do we have to increase staff, decrease staff, or is it all going to be the same?
Our current plan is to maintain the same level of staffing. I probably next year you'll see an additional staff person added. We lost one long-term employee to retirement last year. We're going to lose another one next year. And it just, it takes a long time to get people up to speed. So I think, next year we'll definitely be having an additional staff person added for the operation. The admin side, the administration personnel we have now, Mary Murray, she does a great job at maintaining the office, and I think that could be covered. She's going to retire soon, not exactly sure when. But we, fill that position and then probably bring her back on a part-time basis to help out with the billing processes. But be one person probably in the next fiscal year, but nothing for this year.
So I'm sorry, but Irene, before I go to you, just a follow up to that, Paul. So then the rates that you have set now, you're confident that there will be enough to cover an additional staff person without raising rates?
Yeah, and we call out in this year's budget for a full-time office person for the whole fiscal year. Planning on Mary's retirement, like I said, with the COVID and everything else, she kind of, was unsure when she'd pull the trigger for that. So we called it for the whole year. There's definite funds for that. And we have 2 part-time staff people now. Dave Kraus, retired highway superintendent, works for us part-time driving the sledge truck. And then Mike Hadron, our recently retired, 37-year employee. He, does the lawn maintenance and stuff. So we hired an additional full-time person for the operation of the treatment plant. We would, reduce those hours or eliminate those 2 part-time positions and just make it one full-time.
Okay, that makes sense. Irene, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Paul, did you get your concerns or questions answered about the truck? You said you were going to talk with Evan on Friday.
I did get those addressed. Mary and I spoke yesterday again about it. And we'll just, it'll be an article in the town meeting as a separate standalone article to fund that truck. Just the way, the way Carter, it didn't get included in the capital plan. I submitted it as part of the capital plan. It didn't get included and or vetted, but he, in his memo that you sent me, Irene, he recommends obviously purchasing the truck. So we'll just do it as a separate article in the town meeting.
Well, is it too late to amend the budget and put it in the budget so you don't have to have another article on the floor, town meeting? Is there any reason why we can't amend the budget?
It's going to be, up to what Mary and Evan decide on that. It's going to come out. We're going to move money from retained earnings to an article, major equipment repair replacement, which is where the funding would come from anyway. The article the sewer commission is set up 25 years ago for this purpose. So that's where it would come from. So I'm not, the nuances of how we get to that point is yet to be determined, but that's either a separate article or additional money to that standing article we already had. So
I always like to have less articles at town meeting.
as do I.
Okay. Go ahead, Barry.
2 things. Are we now compliant with the DEP and EPA regulations for water quality coming out of the wastewater treatment plant?
Yes, the treatment plant's fully functional. We had to have it fully operational by 2018. I will tell everybody that the permit we're operating under now everything came online, all the new equipment in 2018. That permit actually expired in August of 2018. They're only 5-year permits. So we submitted all our required information for a permit renewal back, in 2018. We haven't received anything, even the draft permit renewal. Potentially with the new administration in Washington, we may, but we continue to operate under the old permit. Hopefully, when the permit renews, there's no drastic changes to it, which again, would add another additional cost to the operation. So we're meeting all the parameters of that permit.
And the sewer side of the business, does the MSR regulations for surface water treatment and all that stuff, does that fall under sewer or is that under highway, or where does that fit?
The surface, if you're talking about like the MS4,
Yes,
that's under, highway planning, conservation, engineering. It's in Grafton, it's really every department, but the regulations really just fall into the town as a whole, but nothing to do with the sewer department at all. Because that MS4 is, separate, small, separated storm sewers. So it's, we don't have any interconnection, so it's not.
right. Okay,
When we get to highway, I want to talk a little bit more about the MS4, but we'll get to that when we get to highway. It's a good,
Yeah.
I'm glad you raised that, Barry.
Yep.
Anything else on, oh, go ahead, Sue.
Thank you. Paul, or through you, Mr. Chair, Paul, when you go from move from the 2 part-time people to add the full position next year, so that's going to bring on benefits. So I
Correct.
just want to, is that covered by the town in general, or is that covered under sewer enterprise?
It's part of the indirect costs. So like this year, the sewer department's paying, we have $258,000 in indirect costs back to the town, which includes, vehicle insurance, building insurance, health insurance, retirement, certain costs for different offices in the town hall, legal, accounting, treasurer, all those, so it's included in that cost. So there'll be no cost to the general fund at all, just all out of the sewer enterprise.
Thank you, Paul.
Anything else on sewer? All right, so let's move on to the next budget that Paul's here for, and that's the highway budget. Let me get it up on the screen. So Paul, if you want to walk us through highway?
I can't see anybody but you guys. Is Kevin Gallagher, did he sign on yet? I'm just wondering if he jumped on yet. I don't want to take away from his.
He is not here yet.
I don't see him on the list now.
So we're 15 minutes ahead of schedule, so do you want to do something other than highway so we can wait for him? Do you want to jump on to engineering, or are you waiting for Brian and are you waiting for Daryl for those two
Yeah, I
budgets?
just, it's up to you guys. I mean, we can do a quick, the engineering budget, Brian, I'm sure will jump on, but the engineering budget, the big driver there is the MS4 permit is the big cost. It's because it's Brian by himself, so it's his salary, and the other cost driver is the MS4 permitting.
So we are so far ahead of schedule because you're so efficient with that sewer budget. I don't know, what's the preference of the committee? Because I do have a couple of questions that I want to talk about on the MS4. So how do we want to go ahead, guys? We have to stop being so damn efficient. Excuse my language. Have that edited out of the reposting.
I'm trying to be good. I'm not going to ask a lot of questions.
Well, that's why we set aside all this extra time, Barry, to anticipate your questions. And if you're not going to ask them, it really messes us up.
Okay,
Go ahead, Sue Robbins.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, why don't we just go ahead and go over the basics of the engineering budget? And then when Brian comes on, we can ask you more about the MS4.
All right, let's do that. So as a matter of fact, Paul, why don't you walk us through all the budgets, highway, engineering, and cemetery, and then when the foreman and the department heads get here, we can jump onto that. So if you want to just give us an overview on highway, that would be great.
Again, on the highway budget, and Sue can jump in if she wants until Kevin hops on. The big thing with there's not there's not a tremendous cost change in the budget for this year. One thing we are recognizing, and we will be presenting something for the Springtown meeting to adjust the fiscal 21 budget. Just moving into that new building, like everything else, it's all the unknown costs that we didn't know we'd have. And then even as we developed the 22 budget, that was, so early in the opera, we didn't move into that building until October. So we're still paying double cost of the old building, the new building. So it's hard to, this budget's, well, it's similar, I think, as Kevin and I look at it going over the next couple of weeks, with Evan and Mary, we're gonna probably have to do some adjustment before the town, at the town meeting, at least to cover the extra cost for 21. And I'm not sure how we're gonna deal with 22. The energy costs are more than we had thought. And while some of the energy, because we're still paying to heat the old building, so there's $3,000 or $4,000 in expenses right now to cover the cost of the old building. But it's, we heat that building with propane. It was, how much it was going to cost. It was just a complete unknown to us. Kevin's been diligently working at trying to get the heat system adjusted to occupied, unoccupied, the correct temperature for everybody. It's just, it's up and down, and it's hard to get it exact. He's got it dialed in fairly well now, but unfortunately we're at the end of the heating season as well.
So that's a 21 issue, not a 22 issue.
It is, well, it's going to be a 22 because we developed this budget before we knew what the cost would be to heat that building.
Okay, so the 95 isn't, the $95,000 increase you're saying isn't sufficient to cover the costs of the operation of the budget of the building.
We're not really sure. We don't know. It may be that it's not going to cost us $95,000 to heat the building.
Well, I'm just talking about the overall increase in the budget.
Well, the overall part of that, Mark, is we had taken the tree money out.
Oh, that's
we had
right.
a standing line item, the tree removal, 75 grand, and that got removed last fiscal year.
Yep.
As a cost cutting measure, because we had the town meeting article from the year before.
We
So
put
that
it
got added
back in the
back.
budget.
Right. So that's the big chunk of the increase is really that money.
Gotcha.
The rest is, I'll say not, I want to say small potatoes, but the other 20 grand's not. It's, it's just scattered about the budget. But so we're not, we're going to really look at the end of the fiscal year and say, now that Kevin thinks he has the heat dialed in, what our next month's propane bill is going to cost. And then we can, hopefully get a better idea what the energy is going to be. And even the electricity, while it's a new building and more efficient systems, it's just, there's more of them. We have a water treatment thing that we never used to have. There's just more, there's more lights, even though they're LED. It's just the well pump. It's just, there's a lot more moving parts than we used to have. So.
All right, so this line item here, 5210, is the one that you're gonna have to study and examine and determine whether or not we need to increase it.
Yeah, because I don't think 30 grand, even as efficiently as we can run that operation, I'm not sure we can get that. But we may, if, eliminating the money from the old building, because I say we're still paying double cost right now to keep that building, the pipes from freezing there as well.
Gotcha.
So
right.
hopefully, but we'll have a better idea. And I'll work with Evan and Mary and Kevin, and I will try to figure out if we need to adjust this budget. So
Gotcha.
it reflects what we think.
Okay, Irene?
I have two questions. As somebody who heats with propane, that is near and dear to my heart. So I'm just curious, do you guys, I'm assuming you've got a good sized storage tank on the property or no? And who is the supplier? And is that something that's bid, or is it a state contract, or how do you guys get the propane?
We get the propane through DeLeo Gas. There's 5 1,000-gallon storage tanks. There's a cellular-based technology. Like the specifics of it, Kevin can certainly elaborate better than I. It's an automatic fill. When they get to a certain point of 30%, they come and fill them up. And we have the tanks from the kind of a lease. We signed a contract with them to lease the tanks, and they're the supplier as well. So
again, this is much curiosity. We use DeLeo as well. I think they're wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I would assuming as a large user that you guys get a pretty good price. I would think it would be less than I'm paying for mine. And forgive me for not knowing this. I should. It's a brand new building. Was the building designed to allow for solar? And if not, would that be something, do you use enough electricity to make that worth doing in the future?
It was all considered as part of the, the whole green building thing and the LEED technology and stuff. It's not, there's some, the passive solar with the skylights and the maintenance bays and everything else, but it's not, it wasn't designed to have solar panels on the roof, no. So.
Anything else, Irene, before we move on to Sue? Go ahead, Sue.
I just wanted to mention, you'll see an increase in longevity. That's because four people are on there now. And I have no idea how long that old DPW building will take before it's changed over. So they may see 6 months into 2022 still heating that building. So I mean, there's some plans for it, but heaven only knows how long that's going to take.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead,
our
Pat.
suggestion is going to be, once the heating season's over, we'll kill the gas to the building completely. And then really, if it doesn't move with the RFP that we have now, all we're using it for is storage. So I would suggest that next year we turn the water off, drain the pipes, and not heat the building. It's not gonna preserve anything in that building by not heating it. It's, the building is what it is.
So before I go to Gopal, with regards to the RFP, when are the proposals due on that?
I think they have, Chris McGoldrick said something out the other day. They had one response to the RFP. It's currently under review now. So hopefully there's some movement on that. Soon. I'm not sure what that schedule is. I don't know if Evan knows, but it's
Okay,
just
we can follow up with Chris. Thank you. Go, Paul, go ahead.
First, I just wanted to let you know that Kevin is here since we mentioned his name multiple times. The second question I had was, with the library coming on, opening up with a new building, I noticed that the highway department is responsible for maintaining all the parking lots of the schools and stuff. Would that come under your purview too, the library parking lot and so on?
Yeah, I'll answer that so Kevin doesn't blow his gasket early. Yes, we plow the library parking lot, plow salt it. Their maintenance staff, whoever it would be, used to be just a maintenance person from the municipal center would go up and snow blow the walkways and stuff. We don't do that. So they're gonna have to get somebody to do that. But yeah, that's, everybody has their assigned plow route, and that's one of Kevin's stops, because even the temporary one, Kevin's plowing that now. So yeah, we are responsible for
Is
the
that
plowing.
accounted for here because the parking lot would be bigger? I don't know if the expenses are going to be meaningfully higher.
Yeah, for us, it's a routine stop on just somebody's route. It's not a, it's a half an hour additional plowing. There's no additional cost to us. We're already out anyway. So.
All right, thanks.
So there were some questions that somebody asked, and I'm sorry, they're escaping me right now, that we were waiting for Kevin to get. Anybody remember what that question was? Somebody wanted to ask Kevin directly a question. Am I the only one that remembers that? Oh, there you are, Irene. I knew you'd come to my rescue.
Well, I think the big question was on the MS4.
No, that's for Brian.
Oh, wrong one. Okay, sorry. I'll go back to my corner.
Like I said, Kevin
go
can
ahead,
chime in. For like I said, we're gonna sit down with Evan and try and figure it out, because like I say, we we'll use like fire extinguishers as an example. We move in the minimum amount of fire extinguishers you need is, say, 5 in order to get occupancy, and it's just not suitable. So Kevin had to spend money on fire extinguishers. There's in our budget, there's Cintas. We rent the carpets, the welcome mats, or whatever you want to call that. So those get changed up. We used to have 5, now there's 20. So it's all those costs for us that were unknown before we moved in. So, and then just, office furniture that wasn't part of the building budget, cleaning supplies, just, you need a plunger. It's just all those costs that Kevin's buying out of this year's O&M budget are adding up, and hopefully they're one-time costs. But we'll have a better idea as we've, worked through the winter, and that's, obviously our largest cost for that.
I have a question, but Sue has her hand up. So Sue, you want to go?
I just wanted to ask Kevin if, I noticed that when I go by, you're still putting sand out in front like you usually do. Are you gonna keep that up for next year or?
Yes, can you guys hear me all right? This is the first time. We just need to make a spot for it. We're kind of on that bad corner, so we didn't want to just kind of put it in the driveway because there's no spot for the public to get out of the way. So there'll be an accident. So what I'm gonna do is in between the access for the pike and our second entrance, we're just gonna excavate out a little bit and make a little area there where people can pull off and safely and can get that salt sand mix there.
Is the salt in at the old building, is the salt shed all empty there?
Yeah.
It is, okay. I go by, but I just don't, I'm so used to just not looking,
Well, what we've been doing is, we've probably done it 3 times already. We'll go there with a truck that's like half full and then just have it clean out in there and then use that material mixed with the sand and put that out front.
Anything else, Sue?
What's that?
I was asking Sue if she had any other questions. Andy?
Not a question, just a comment. As somebody who routinely goes up and fills up a couple 5-gallon pails, I wondered how you were going to handle that at the new location because it is a rough corner. So I just wanted to comment that I think that's a great idea and I appreciate you watching out for us.
So following up on that, snow and ice this year, we already in a deficit?
Yes.
Oh,
I'll start and Kevin can jump in. The salt shed, the new salt shed is obviously huge. We emptied out the old one as much as we could last winter. So we had to fill that at the beginning of the season, which was a huge cost at the beginning. Traditionally, we'd have half a shed left. And then it's, this is, we had an average winter as far as snowfall goes. But a lot of ice and if Kevin wants to jump in on that, it's just,
yeah. Basically, we started our regular salt orders are anywhere from 300 ton to 700 ton for every time we keep going. I had to buy, oh God, I think it was close to 2,000 ton.
To fill the new shed?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just before we even started. And that because at last year, I pretty much ran our salt shed down to practically empty. So I didn't have that much to truck back and forth. I think we only needed 10 trucks, but yeah, like to fill that thing, and I didn't even fill it, because I wasn't sure how much was going to fit in there. I mean, they told you could fit, 5,000 ton in there. And no way, they were very adamant about us with this new building that it had to stay below the yellow line, and I didn't want to push any. Yeah, did I say 200 ton? I meant 2,000. I know it's first thing in the morning. Sorry.
That's all right. So Kevin, operationally, and then I got a question for Evan on the snow and ice. Operationally, how's the new building working?
It's great. It's great. We all love it. Putting the plows on, having the space to get everything inside, it's just wonderful. And we're all blessed. I mean, we got a couple more little kinks to shake out, just like anything else, but it's great.
That's awesome. So Evan, my question to you, back to snow and ice, it had been the practice in years past that we zero out the snow and ice through either transfers from overlay, transfers from other departmental line items and the such to get rid of a deficit before the end of the fiscal year. But you do have the option of raising it on next year's recap so that you don't have to hit those funds have you given thought, or what's been your practice in Munson and in your career on dealing with snow and ice, and how do you plan on handling it here? Or have you even thought about it?
No, I just was counting on Kevin to keep it under control, which clearly he has not. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I think that, so in my career, we've always raised it on next year, as an offset to next year's cost. Mary and I have not sat down about what, the past practice in Grafton and what would be maybe preferable moving forward. I think that our approach to these, coming weeks is kind of going with what Grafton has been doing and not making major changes. And then, hitting the ground running after this town meeting and really examining some of those practices. So
Okay.
in short, I don't know what we're going to do yet. But it's always been our practice to raise it in next year.
That's always been my practice as well, unless it's so small that we can take care of it
Right.
here. But it's been the history in Grafton the last several years to zero it out prior to the end of the fiscal year by a line item transfer at town meeting, either through an overlay surplus appropriation or finding money in
Yeah.
various accounts to wipe it out. It's up to you. I mean, you don't want to, if you raise it next year, obviously that's going to affect the amount of revenues that you have available to fund next year's operating budget. But once you build it into the budget, you have it there every year thereafter. So I prefer building it in the following year's budget if possible. Just my
Yeah.
2 cents.
That's, I think, Mary and my preference. But like I said, just coming in kind of in the middle here, we're going to feel that out for budget one and then
I think
hopefully
you're-
build our own moving forward.
I think they're budgeted, the snow and ice, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 150. And I thought that was a little low. I would have liked, I'd like it at least a minimum of 200,000.
Well, when you look at, I agree with you 100%, Mary, and Evan, when you're looking at the budget and you're making your final determinations, I know Carter put another $75,000 in the finance committee's reserve fund for next year.
Yeah.
So if you want to take that 75 out and throw it into snow and ice, I think that would make sense. And I agree with Mary, you should build that number up to over 225. I mean, my budget in Groton for snow and ice is 350,000. And I was always shocked that Grafton's was so little at 150. So
Yeah.
if you have the opportunity to build it, that'll save you in future fiscal years as well. So just something
Agreed.
something to think about. Go ahead, Sue.
One of the reasons why we never raised it is because of a thing that happened a long time ago when we didn't have a very wintry a winter with a lot of snow. And so we hardly spent any of that money. And so everybody's been kind of stuck with that thinking that if we raise it, we aren't going to be able to ever lower it again. But I think it's come to the point where I think we need to raise it because we've been going over for several years now.
Every
So-
year that I've been on the finance committee, we have gone into a deficit in that account. So I think now's the time to think about it. And the reason that you have to be careful with it, because once you put it at a certain level, you can't go down because the 3-year average allows you to deficit spend. So you have to, it's a kabuki dance.
Right.
And so,
It's one of the reasons why no one
Yep.
ever wanted to raise it.
but I think now's the time to raise it since we've gone over it so many times. Heather,
Yeah, am I on mute? Okay,
No,
yeah,
we can
sorry.
hear
I
you.
was gonna, I was
Okay.
gonna say the exact same thing. I mean, I think, I've been on this committee for 11 years and I think the same thing. We had talked about raising it and then I guess everyone who was on was nervous because then we'd have to continue at that level.
Right.
But the past 10 years, even if it doesn't snow, it's icy and we still go over. So it's like you said, 11 years, we have it's been in a deficit for 11 years. So I think maybe it's not this year, but definitely next year, I think we need to think about raising it.
Yeah. And one
you got
thing
that
we
big
can,
shed to fill too.
right.
Go
One
ahead.
thing we can try to do is, you might take it over 3 years and bump it up 25,000 a year.
Right.
And then you don't feel that big impact anywhere, but it gets us kind of closer to where
Somewhere.
we need to be over time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea. I like that.
That's good. That's good. Any other questions on the highway department budget for Kevin? All right, excellent. Kevin, thank you so much. And that train going behind you, is it heading anywhere special?
No, just my living room. One of these times it's gonna come back with snow on it and I'm gonna freak out. And I
Any
just
other
like to
questions?
also add here.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I only listened to Paul and he told me to be here at 9 and I'm never late for anything. And I felt that I missed half of the meeting. So
That's not your fault. It was just that Barry didn't ask as many sewer questions as we anticipated, so we jumped right into highway.
all right, well,
But thank
I
you
just wanted
so
to
much
let
for.
you know, my tardiness is because of Paul Canoyer, not because of, yeah.
Well,
not-
listen, we appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday to come join us anyway. Thank
No
you very,
problem.
very much.
No problem.
I see Daryl's here, so why don't we jump on to the cemetery and park budget? Let me share the screen. Get that up here for you. So Paul or Daryl, how do you guys want to go about presenting this one?
I'll start and Daryl can jump in. Same idea as everything else. There's not a whole dramatic increase. The one increase that we have is personnel. The largest increase, I guess, is, last year Daryl has two, we call them college kids, but two part-time college age guys, girls, to mow the cemeteries along with the caretakers that are there every year. Those two part-time positions were eliminated in last year's budget as a cost-cutting measure. And well, it worked last year because it was they were eliminated COVID, so there wasn't a lot of field use. So the guys who regularly mow had time to do the cemeteries. But that won't, the fields will be used this year, hopefully. So Carter did add those positions back in, which are gravely needed if we want to continue the level of service we provide, and keep the grass.
What was the impact? Did we have to borrow other employees from the highway department or whatever to stay on top of it to catch up to the cutting? Or how did we deal with the shortfall this year?
Daryl could elaborate, but because the fields weren't used last spring because all the spring sports were canceled because of COVID, instead of having to mow those fields twice a week, they were able to just do them once a week because they weren't being used.
Gotcha, understood. Okay.
So the regular staff guys were able to jump on the cemeteries and help the caretakers up. Daryl, and add anything else, Daryl, if you want on that.
Yeah. So pretty much we really just had to prioritize certain projects, and some things fell by the wayside and we got to when we could. One of the things that I was sort of disappointed with was Riverside Cemetery. I mean, the caretaker did the best that he could, but we didn't have the support for him over there. So the actual cemetery around the stones, the fence lines, the weed whacking was not optimal. I had to temper my expectations for all of that. And as far as that extra labor goes, I mean, it's more than just the cemeteries. It's ball field maintenance. It's bleacher painting and fence painting, and it hurt. We definitely need that extra labor there to really have a cohesive unit moving forward.
Well, I guess Daryl, that leads to a question now. Obviously, the grass is going to start growing in fiscal year 21. This increase is for fiscal year 22. So for, say, March, April, May, and June of this year, are you going to have the same problem? Are we going to need to supplement your budget now to bring on people prior to July 1st? I guess is my question.
Well, I mean, we were able to make it through last year. If we attempt to do the same thing that we did last year, this year, I mean, we're going to struggle, but I think we could handle it until July. I think we'd be able to handle that.
The only thing I'll add to that is one of Daryl's full-time staff people, Chase Heck, actually transferred to the highway department back in January. So it's been Daryl and Connor O'Toole for the last several months. So we've only been paying one, Daryl's salary plus one additional truck driver's salary. So there's some extra money there. So hopefully we can bring these guys on. The goal will hopefully would be, let's say like for June, get an extra month out of them using the money left that we didn't pay Chase, which was budgeted.
Oh, okay. So you do have a little bit of a balance to help out.
Yeah, because that position is still unfilled.
Gotcha.
We interviewed and we made a recommendation to Evan to hire somebody for April 5th would be his start date. So we'd have 3 months of available money to bring the part-time guys in a little bit earlier.
Excellent. Go ahead, Evan.
I just wanted to mention, if we need a little more, we can always do a article on the special and bridge any gap that we need there to get people in earlier to make sure things are getting done.
Evan, have you solved all of the problems in your first 2 weeks is the question I think I have for you right now, because,
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I'm like 6 months from retirement right now. No, I mean, we're obviously, Mary and I, we've been a good team for the last 6 years. So we've done all this just smaller and in a different spot. So definitely want to make sure people are coming to us with those requests, and any gaps we can help fill, we will.
awesome. Any other questions on the cemetery and parks budget before we jump into, because I see Brian's here, before we jump into engineering? Any other questions for Daryl on that?
Well, okay.
Go ahead, Barry. Go ahead, Barry.
How many parks do we actually have that are not school related?
Oh, let's see, we have Airport Park, Perry Hill Park, Whitney Park, Norcross Park, Riverview Park, Brook Meadow Park, Mill Villages Park, and I don't know if you want to consider the Common as another green space, open park sort of area, but we maintain all of those. Yep.
Okay, so that's 8 of them. All right. Just curious.
Anything else? Okay, so we're gonna jump into engineering. Let me get that up on the screen, but while I'm doing that, Sue or Sue Fiacco or Sue Robbins, if either one of you can get a hold of Chief Crapo to let him know that we're about a half hour ahead of schedule. If he wants to jump on board at 9:30, that would be great. I don't know if you guys have his cell number or can reach out to him and let him know we're way, way, way ahead of schedule. Barry, you're really,
Is this challenge?
Causing
Am I
problems.
supposed to come up with a whole lot more questions?
I think you have to.
I can.
Barry, you were mentioned in my transition memo, like, watch out for Barry. He's got a lot of questions. You're really disappointing me right now. I can text the chief and let him know if nobody else has.
I'd
I think
appreciate
that
that.
was a 2-part question, a 2-part statement in your memo.
Yes.
Watch out for Barry was the first part. And, and the Black Hawk helicopters are still here. So they're watching.
Okay.
All right, let me get the engineering budget up on the screen. So Brian, thank you for being here. Paul or Brian, do you want to start to walk us through this?
Like I said earlier, the lot, obviously, we had no, Carter recommended we don't add any salary increases, so that's just straight across the board. He said that Evan would deal with that. Hopefully that does happen. But there's the MS4 permit is the big increase in that budget. And we have no, that MS4 permit in Grafton is not, most towns have a dedicated person for that function. We do not. So it's kind of, Brian, we sub a lot of it out, but then on the town side, it's planning, conservation, Brian and myself, and then some of Kevin's staff to help out with some of the field stuff. So let's say the work that other towns would maybe have a full-time person for, we sub that labor out to VHB.
So last year, we bumped up the budget 50 grand to almost 50 grand to deal with MS4 by bringing in the consultants and everything else that we need to do for compliance. This year, we're anticipating more, but is this still enough for everything that you have to do? Because I know the compliance has been crazy relative to dealing with that permit. And I know in my town, what we ended up doing is we created an enterprise fund specifically for stormwater and to deal with the MS4 permit. And within there, we hired a full-time staff person to deal with the issues. We also put in a capital line item in there to buy the necessary equipment to clean the catch basins and eventually replace our street sweeper to comply with MS4 permit regulations. And when we set this up, every property in town was getting a bill for $40 to cover the cost. And we set it up as an enterprise fund. So I guess my question to both you, Paul and Brian, is this budget sufficient to cover everything that you need to do? Or are we just going to be like grappling by not having the right amount of personnel in this budget? And does it make sense now to move forward and maybe think about creating an enterprise fund for stormwater so that we can have the right amount of people and the right equipment for this budget? For $40 a year, makes it's not that big a deal. I guess,
Right,
is what I'm saying.
I'll jump quick on the equipment end of it, and then Brian can talk about the personnel maybe. So we have a catch basin cleaner that, Kevin and I, along with Tim McInerney, we put $40,000 into rebuilding the catch basin cleaner we had, took it off of the streets from plowing. So that truck is been completely rebuilt 2 years ago. We expect to get at least 10 years of life out of that truck. So we're able to clean every catch basin as required by the permit with in-house staff and in-house equipment. The street sweeper, same thing. It's probably 6 years old, 7 years old, so that's in good shape. So we're able to sweep the streets as required in the permit as well with town equipment and town staff. And in the highway department budget, there's a line for disposal of the street sweepings and the catch basin cleanings if needed. So those costs are covered already. I do agree on the enterprise fund. It's just, something we talked about, early in 20. And then, obviously with everything that went on, it fell off from the discussion. It's something we certainly should address because the permit, as it moves forward in years, it gets more and more and more costly to.
Yeah, and eventually, you're gonna need to replace that catch basin cleaner. You're gonna need to replace the street sweeper. So, I know we have a new capital exclusion that we have, and we're trying to address our capital, but there's such a backlog. If there's a way to address this particular situation through an enterprise fund by building up the cash flow that you need to replace this equipment, I think, Evan, that's something I'd be more than happy to talk to you about and let you know what our experience was and how it's worked in my town, because it's 1 year under, we have everything set up and we're in a really good position. So go, Paul, go ahead.
No, I just had a question on that engineer's cell phone, $1,000 per year. What is that on the budget?
Okay. Well, that pays for its communications. So it's like $53 a month for the cell phone. And the other things that come out of that is for advertising for bids that I go out for. And to advertise, it's
so the $1,000 per year is just not for the cell phone.
Correct. It's for also advertising, like putting ads in the paper.
Okay, because I read it as cell phone, $1,000 a year.
Yeah, it should say in there, it's also for advertising for bids as well.
Okay, thanks.
It's a gold plated cell phone, Gopal. I don't know if you
I know,
realize
that's why
that.
I was curious.
Yeah. Are you trying to get one? Anything else for Brian on this? Evan, I really think considering an enterprise fund is something I would recommend that you really jump on and take a look at and see if that's a possibility. It frees up $100,000, at least $100,000 in the operating budget, which to me is a time that, we're trying to stretch the override as far as possible. And if there are other ways to fund opportunities to do this, it will stretch the override longer, because you free up that kind of money in the budget going into next year, school costs, capital costs, maintenance costs, operating the highway garage building, which is, bigger than what they have now. And we already talked about needing more money there. Might be something you want to think about. Go ahead, Irene. And then Barry, I saw you raise your hand. Irene?
I'm just curious, Mark, how that works. For example, with the sewer, we obviously get 4 bills a year, directly from the sewer department. So if we were to establish an enterprise fund for this, how would we going to get a separate bill from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way we set it up is we went to town meeting, we created a bylaw that established the enterprise fund, and it authorized the select board to bill based on, and we set the criteria up, and it's any improved property. So any property that has impervious surface on it, either a driveway or a house or something, they would be getting a bill. Any property that's open space, they would not get a bill. So it doesn't make sense, because they're not contributing to the stormwater because the water's coming on that property. It's not running off anywhere. It's staying on that property. So we had about 4,000 parcels, 4,100 parcels that were in effect for this. And we established a budget. And based on the budget, it turned out to be about $41 a year. And instead of sending out 4 bills for $41, for $10 each, we sent out 1 bill once a year for that amount of money. And we collect it once a year. So it would work the way the sewer bill works, but you would only send out 1 bill because it's not going to be as expensive. I mean, I just got my sewer bill, and obviously I'm not happy with you, Paul, with that sewer bill, but that's a whole nother debate for another meeting. But that's how it would work.
Okay,
Does that
and
make sense?
then, and it's a flat rate per parcel where sewer.
There's
works
many
sewer.
ways to do it. We made the decision that regardless of the size, because it would be way too complicated to start worrying about frontage and.
That's what I was
and-
thinking.
Yeah, so we just set a flat rate per parcel, one bill, because otherwise it would have been a nightmare trying to figure all that stuff out.
Okay.
Go ahead, Barry.
If I could please on that,
Go ahead, Brian, please.
we've had this discussion going on for over a decade now. And basically what we decided was the complication of trying to figure it out, because it's like you say, there's definitely many different ways to try to figure it out. Like Westboro does the amount of the percentage of impervious surface on however size of a lot and things like that. But with everything that was going on at the times with needing overrides and everything else, it was decided that, we should just be able to handle this in-house due to the fact that, we're talking about $100,000 a year. If you can't support that within what you already have, then we're really messed up. So, and we didn't want to, put a rain tax on the people in town, given the fact that, yeah, hey, we need overrides for the schools. So it was
But it is a way to
what
free
can
up,
people
it is a
actually-
way to free up money in the budget that I think is needed.
money in the
But-
budget means that you're screwing something up somewhere else.
But eventually you're gonna have capital costs as well, replacing street sweepers, replacing catch basin cleaners and things like that. So it's more than 100,000 a year when you factor in those costs. So if you stop planning for that now, it would make sense. But anyway, it's just my 2 cents to everybody, but
Yeah,
I
my
understand the
two
point,
cents,
Brian.
hey, we already took trash removal, which is a service that I think should be in the budget no matter what, but we already took that out and now we're paying for trash bags. You know what I mean?
I understand. Any other questions for Brian on this? Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, my understanding with MS4 is to improve the quality of whatever water is going into our watershed, which pretty much for us is the Blackstone. Do we measure the quality into the wastewater treatment plant from the Blackstone? Do we measure that now?
Every day. So the water discharge from the treatment plant gets analyzed every day. Quarterly, we send a sample to a third-party tester, which we also sample the river at the same time as a comparison, our water into the Blackstone versus, the Blackstone itself going by. Whatever you should remember about the MS4 permit, they've gone after the EPA went after the low-hanging fruit with upgrade. $45 million for us. Uxbridge was in the same boat. Northbridge, Millbury just abandoned their treatment plant altogether and just pump it up a Blackstone. Upton, which inevitably goes to the West River and then to the Blackstone, we all had to do upgrades in this last round of permits. So they went after those would be easy. That was easy to try and remove some of the nutrients getting in the water. The other 50% of the nutrients going in that river are what they call non-point source. And it's off of people's yards, fields, golf courses, roads. So it's identifying those areas to remove it. And it's gonna be expensive for all of us to get to the level they want that river to be. Because the wastewater plants are really at the limit of, just about at the limit of the technology available. Any changes we do now will be really costly for not much change. So we should all, well, Brian and I might disagree about the enterprise thing it's going to cost us all, a decent amount of money in the years going forward for that MS4 permit, so.
Yeah, I understand that we measure the quality of the water coming out of the wastewater. My question is, do we currently measure the quality of the water that we put into the wastewater
Yeah,
plant?
the wastewater is analyzed in and out.
Okay,
So
thanks.
and that whole permit is based on percent removal. And we're required, there's a certain percent we have to remove, and we're well past even the permit limits, exceeding those permit limits by a dramatic amount. We're doing as much as we can almost as much as we can on the wastewater side. The other reduction is going to have to come from the stormwater system, which is tough to get out.
Okay, thank you.
Well, another thing we have to deal with over there too, though, you got Lake Quinsigamon with the Quinsigamon River that feeds into the Blackstone, and all the homes along in Worcester and Shrewsbury with fertilizing their yards and everything else, and we're downstream, so it's one of those things too.
Yeah, and hopefully they're going to be doing something to remediate the quality of what they're putting into. Ultimately, I got it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Brian or Paul on the engineering budget? Evan, I'd like an opportunity at some point to talk further with you on the potential enterprise, maybe.
Yeah, I made a note. We'll connect on that.
Anything else? Well, Brian and Paul, thank you so much for giving up your Saturday morning and coming in, meeting with us. We really appreciate it. I think it was a good discussion. I think we covered a lot of great ground. So thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure we'll hear back from Evan on any amendments to the highway budget or such as we move forward with the new building. So thank you so much, guys. And Daryl, you too. Thank you very much for coming in and joining us this morning. I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday to be here. So thank you. Anything else? All right. I see the chief is here.
Thank you very much.
Chief, thank you. So Chief, thank you so much for coming in early. We appreciate it. You look very studious with all those law books behind you.
Yeah, I'm only halfway done the bookcase, so I've got a lot of reading to do.
So let me share the screen here, and we will get right into the, I believe it's on page 87. Let me spin up here. Is everybody getting dizzy looking at this flyby? I should have been more prepared for you, Chief. I apologize.
No problem.
86.
All right, here we are. I got it. So, Chief, why don't you walk us through, talk about changes in the budget, where we're at, and then I also want to talk about the cruisers, if we were able to put the cruisers into the budget and things like that. So it's all yours.
Okay, well, basically, no surprises in our budget. We did the budget on the personnel side with no raises as instructed. The only thing is with the CBA with the Police Alliance on June 30th, there's a kicker in there for a 0.5% raise. So that takes place June 30th. So anything that was done for the FY22 budget included that. And that kind of affected some of the basically the pay naturally, but it also affected Quinn bill and holiday pay. So that's where the bump is there. There is an extra day in FY22, so the budget was figured on 52.2 weeks, or 2,088 hours as opposed to 2,080 hours. Also on the personnel side, we had to add the $52,000 that we're not getting from the school for the school resource officer position. They've been paying us $52,000 because we're a dedicated officer when school is in session.
Is that part of your, Chief? Is that part of the 20 sworn officers? One of them is the SRO?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We had originally added that 20th officer or 19th officer back in 2015. We've got a COPS hiring grant that I put in for years, and then I talked with Sue about this as far as the school resource officer position goes. I mean, we can keep it and pay for it, or I think everybody's You still there?
We can
Yeah,
hear you.
okay. I keep getting a thing here. My internet connection is,
Inconsistent.
but yeah. Based on law and the justice, there was a justice act that passed back in Criminal Justice Act that passed in 2018, where we had to have a school resource officer, or they would send the state police in to police the schools, which I don't see that ever would happen. And now with everything that's going on, the Police Reform Act just passed, there's a question as to whether or not we have to have a school resource officer. And I'd have to have a discussion with Jay Cummings about that, whether or not they want to continue to have a school resource officer, because we can use the manpower on our side too. So, other than that, like I said, minor step increases. So that's the only thing you're going to see for an increase in the personnel budget. Expenses, originally I asked for the 2 cruisers in our budget. And I guess Carter, I put that into the capital, which, as far as we're concerned, we're happy we can get it either way. But once again, having discussion with the finance committee in the past, we'd like to see it in the operating budget. But however you want to do it, as long as we can get it, that's, we'll take it any way we can get it.
Yeah, just so Evan, to follow up on that with the chief, last year, there was a big debate on how to fund cruisers. We wanted to make sure we maintained, I think it's 2 a year, correct, chief?
That's correct.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure we got 2 a year for cruisers. And, we want to make sure that's an annual appropriation. If it gets into the operating budget where it was before, that way we know every year he's going to be able to get his 2 cruisers. The problem is when they pulled it out and put it in capital, depending on the money available, it was like, we're going to do one, we're not going to do any this year, make it stretch it out, which to us didn't make sense because his maintenance costs would go up, and it just makes sense to have a consistent program. So if it's guaranteed in the capital budget each year, that's fine. If not, we'd like to see it in the operating budget. I think that was the decision of the FinCom, right, guys, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, I thought we had done a warrant article on this and it was approved.
Yeah, for fiscal year 21, but now we're looking at the 22 budget, and it looks like Carter put 2 cruisers in the capital budget. I don't know why we wouldn't keep it consistent in the operating budget. Go ahead, Sue.
Okay.
It was a long time ago that I've been at finance for a long time, but I think it was like 10 years ago, we had decided that we needed to put the cruisers in the operating budget because these were an annual expense that the chief was always looking at, and he has them on a rotation cycle. So it only made sense, since this is a regular thing that he does, to put in the operating budget, and then it was taken out. And so it has really made it difficult, I think, to plan when you get one year and then 2 the next year. So I don't know if we can guarantee that it would be in the capital every year, but I would like to see it back in the operating budget where it really belongs.
When we did, I can't remember, Sue, when we did the budget last year, did we raise and appropriate out of taxation for the cruisers, or did we take it out of capital last spring's town meeting? I can't remember.
Oh, I don't remember.
Or the fall town meeting. Chief?
That was a fall town meeting. I had made a request originally in the budget for 21. I made a request under operating. It was taken out and there was no provision. And then in the fall town meeting, I made a request to put it as a warrant article.
So it wasn't in the operating budget.
All right. So the annual, Chief, the annual cost for 2 cruisers is anywhere between 90 to 100, depending on, or 100 to 110, depending on equipping them?
Yeah, and after the next purchase, we'll have one more, and then we'll have 20 or newer vehicles, 2020. And the big issue was the equipping. I mean, because we couldn't use for the 2020s and newer Explorers, if you want to call them police utility vehicles, they were a completely different shape. They're actually 11 inches wider than the other Explorers that we have, anything before 2020. So we couldn't fit the cages, the light bars didn't fit right, the consoles didn't fit the way it was configured. So we had to buy all new, I mean, the cages are upwards of $2,500. So after if we get these 2 cruisers here, there's one more, and then we should be able to start recycling the equipment to go into the 2020 or newer vehicles, unless they change the configuration of the Ford Explorer again, you know. But Ford has a tendency to do that.
Well,
They
because
do-
they're in cahoots with the light bar companies and the cage companies, chief, you know that.
Really? Yeah. No, and it seems like, you know, we get going, we get the cycle going, you know, for accreditation purposes, we went with single cell cages so that you know, when you put a prisoner in, they just have one single cell and there's part of a back seat available. That was recommended in accreditation. So we went with that, you know, trying to meet that standard. And so that was more expensive, you know, otherwise, if you're putting in just regular cages.
Do we lose the chief?
Yeah, I think he froze.
Oh, we did lose the chief. Must be all that law, those law books in the back sucking in all the power.
Hello?
Oh, is he back? There he is.
Oh.
Chief, we lost you for a second.
Did you? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, that's all right. Before I go to Andy, because I know Andy has a question, did you end up doing the hybrid on the new purchase? Would you end up buying, chief?
The ones that we just bought,
Yeah.
which is still being worked on, we have one gas and one hybrid.
So you haven't put the hybrid into play yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. Okay.
Not
Andy, you had a question for the chief?
No, it wasn't a question per se, and I didn't want to speak out of turn here, Chief. But something that we had discussed in our preliminary meeting was the fact that we budgeted for 2 hybrids, and it had been mentioned at FinCom before, and I'm not sure if Evan can speak to it further. When we had originally talked with Carter and the chief about getting 2 new cruisers in the upcoming year, I felt like we had ruled out the hybrid options. And in our meeting, the chief expressed there could be some concerns over how much the highway department is able to service the newer hybrid vehicles. So it seemed like it was a little bit of a surprise to kind of all involved that Carter had gone to budgeting for 2 new hybrid cruisers. So I don't know if that's something that Evan could speak more to, and please, chief, correct me if I'm off base here. But that was my only kind of question / comment.
All right. When I originally budgeted for 2 cruisers, there was for gas powered vehicles. Like I said, I mean, and I was surprised that they put in more money, and, you know, we'll take more money if you want to give it to us, and we'll go with the hybrids. But my concern is, and, you know, I haven't had it, my fault, I didn't get a chance to speak with Doug. I don't know how the hybrids differ as far as maintenance, as far as engine components and electrical systems are. I mean, Doug is great. You know, highway is great for maintaining our vehicles, and that's where we save a lot of money. Naturally, if there's something they can't do, the vehicle's under warranty. But especially after the warranty, which hopefully we won't have cars much longer after the warranty is expired. But hybrids, you know, that's a whole new thing, especially in police services. So they're more expensive to begin with. That's why we're getting more money than I actually asked for, which is fine. But I don't know what the service is going to be on the hybrids, the batteries, and like I said, the electrical system and all that. So that's a crapshoot at best.
Go ahead, Sue.
Mark, I did ask Paul what they would do for how they could service the hybrids. And he said basically all they can do is change the tires and look at the brakes. Otherwise, everything else has to be sent out, which concerns me because when they send a car out, that's one less car that the police department has. So you know, we had stated, Andy and I had said to the chief that maybe he should go with the hybrids for these 2 years, but keep track of it's really cost effective for us to have hybrids.
Makes sense. Go, Paul.
Yeah, Chief, what is the price difference between a hybrid and a gas?
It's probably a little over $3,000
Okay.
up front, you know, on the cost, and that's
the
our
service-
cost because we go through municipal contracts and all. So
And how long are the warranties for?
warranties are pretty much the same, 336, and
Okay.
there's a 5-year on the drivetrain.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking means other departments are going to come and say that they don't have enough money. for their budgets, and I'm sure everybody would want an adjustment. So if there is a $6,000 here that we could use, I mean, the thing is, I don't know why we can't go with 2 gas, because that's 90,000. Otherwise, it's 96,000 for 2 hybrids. I'm assuming that's what is being assigned.
Yeah, roughly. The only thing is I can say is I know we had looked, I think it's with Leah, we could probably get some money from the green communities to cover the cost. She had inquired, I sent her the estimate for the hybrids, and I think they may be able to cover the cost of the difference. I don't know. That's not definitive. So
Yeah.
what we can do is if we want to finance, I don't know how you want to do it. It's totally up to you, of course. You can finance for the hybrids, and if we don't use the money, I don't know if you could transfer it, whatever. If we get that the grant through green communities, we could pay for it and transfer.
Yeah. I think we lost the chief again.
Yeah, he froze for a second, but go ahead, go Paul.
No, I was just going to mention, having owned a hybrid in the past, the savings are marginal in terms of fuel costs or whatever. So the price of gas has to really keep going up. Yes, it is going up right now. So I just wanted to raise up to $6,000 cheaper for gas. I'm not really sure if there's going to be much of a savings.
So you're saying, go Paul, you're saying that unless the gas prices go up over, say, maybe $3 a gallon, having the hybrid doesn't really save a lot of money in those costs?
That was my experience. I bought it more for environmental reasons than anything else. It was not to save money. And hybrids are more expensive. And repairs of them, unless something has changed in the last 3 years, repairs of them, if the battery has to be replaced, it's an expensive proposition. So that would be my recommendation.
Understood. Before I go to Irene and Andy, let's make sure the chief can get back.
Can you see me?
Oh, there you are. Hey, chief.
All
We
right.
got you. Go ahead, Irene.
All set?
Paul, I just wanted to add that the gas savings are only part of it. You did say that in the last part of your comment, which was it wasn't so much for the gas savings as for the environmental. So, that much fewer emissions in the air from vehicles that are driven a lot of miles a year. They put some serious mileage on those cruisers. They were around a lot. So is that worth it? Again, that's got to be part of the debate. It's not just about the gas.
Andy?
I was gonna elaborate on that as well, because while we can debate the merits of that, we had also, and I found the discussion with the chief to be fascinating. We also questioned the additional electrical draw on the system that is required by all the police systems that are installed in the cruisers, from the light bars to the computers all the way down. So it's even beyond the gas electric offset, for direct fuel costs, but hoping that there's something in the system to, combat the additional electrical draw.
Sue.
I just wanted to remind everybody that the cruisers are on the Capitol. And even though if we decided that, or if the chief decided he wanted to get gas cruisers, it's not going to, aren't going to be any savings in the operating budget because it's all on the Capitol. So it probably not even going to save enough money to move up somebody up on the capital budget. So
It's not a lot of money. So Evan, the question to you is, we've had this discussion for the last several years on the finance committee on whether or not those recurring costs should be in the operating budget. And I know Carter put it in the capital. What's your thoughts on putting the cruisers back as part of the overall operation of the police budget?
So for this fiscal year, I'm not sure. We're everybody's making changes as we go. So I want to make sure we have funding to do that. But in general, I'm in favor of putting it in the operating budget. That's how Mary and I have approached it in the past. In Munson, we did 2 cruisers every 3 years, and we did a lease. So we broke up the payment allocated each year, and just kept turning over 3 vehicles every 2 years. The only deal is I get the funding, I get to pick the color. So that's how it goes.
I think the chief might fight you over that, Evan. I'm saying, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, No, but I'm in favor of it too. I think it's much cleaner and it really does stretch the way that you're thinking about one-time cost. Because yes, you're buying that car one time, but at the same time, it's really an ongoing, program. So I like to see it there. It's much more stable.
I agree with that 100%.
Evan,
Oh, go ahead.
Evan, I don't know if they told you can pick any color as long as it's black.
Yeah.
So Chief, with the new reform bill that was just passed, there are requirements, training requirements and things like that. Has your fiscal year 22 budget addressed any of that, or is it too new and there's not enough information for you to make an informed, intelligent decision on how this new police reform bill is going to impact your operating budget?
Well, as far as policies go and all that, and that's, you'll see that in our maintenance costs and our dues and subscriptions costs. We've pretty much gotten a head start on the reform. I mean, we're going for accreditation. We're still in self-assessment, and hopefully we just did a big audit for our evidence room. That's one of the big things. And matter of fact, Evan just signed off on a PO. We're getting a barcoding system for all our evidence, so that it's going to be tracked very easily. And if the state ever wanted to do an audit, we can come up with a list and we can show, where our evidence is, where our property is. It'll all be numbered and barcoded, very easy to find, very easy to keep track of, and very, easier to dispose of. So we cleaned out quite a bit. And we've been working on that. And that's one of the things, although the police reform bill doesn't say that you have to go for accreditation, but they're saying certification or policies are pretty much complete for the standards, at least for the certification. I mean, the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission certification, not just what the state's looking for. As far as training goes, sending officers to classes and whatnot, right now we're doing pretty much online. I'm sending officers to fair and impartial policing courses. That costs money because when you have to send them out, it's got to be either on a day off, or if we have enough officers working, one officer can leave. But most of the times it's the day off, or we have to call somebody back to fill his shift. That's almost like a 9-hour class. It's out in Southbridge right now, but I want everybody to get that so that we're covered. And there's going to be more training. I haven't asked for more in the training budget because we've been pretty good. We've been pretty safe with that. But after next year, we'll see. But nobody can predict that. A lot of people take comp time, which doesn't cost us anything up front. And they can only take comp time when we have enough officers for an officer to take. So if we have, say, 4 officers working, an officer can take comp time. If we only have the minimum, then that officer can't take comp time on that day, so it doesn't really cost us much there. So we've been pretty good with that, and we're going to have to keep a strict watch and have to see what police reform bill, what else comes out. But we've been pretty much ahead of the curve on that, I'm happy to say, and hopefully we can stay that way. But who knows, once the commission comes up and once post, is formed and they decide on what the training is. As I said, we've been doing the 40-hour training every year for everybody, including our specials, our part-timers. They get the 40 hours also, so everybody meets the mandate. And we've been.
So you're going to be able to keep your reserve officers under the new reform, but because of the training that you put them through?
That's up in the air. A lot of talk on that. But our reserve officers, we only use for details. We don't use them.
Oh, you don't use them to cover shifts? Okay.
No, but we want to keep them with the same training because they're out there, they're in uniform. If they see something and it's happened before, they have to act. As a matter of fact, most of the reserve officers now, I'll say part-timers or whatever post decides to call them, because that's up in the air too. We have reserves. We have a couple of, we still have some civil service part-timers, and they're called intermittents. And, the retired officers, we're calling them part-time officers, but they don't know if they're going to call them reserves, part-timers, intermittents, or, they're not auxiliaries because they're getting paid. So, and that's what's going to be cleaned up in this reform bill is what are they going to be called exactly, but our part-timers, even the retired officers, they do not work the street. They only work details, and they'll be called in for, like, if there's a big storm and we need to close a road. they'll do that, but they do not get in a cruiser and
Okay.
patrol the street, you know.
That won't, so that aspect of the police reform bill won't impact your
It should,
budget.
it should,
Okay.
unless they say there'll be no more part-time officers, which is gonna be very hard to do because Western Mass, the smaller communities in Western Mass.
They're all part-time officers.
They're all part-timers. Places like the Cape and Martha's Vineyard and all that during the summertime, they're all part-time officers. So I don't see that being, eliminated in the near future. But the
Understood.
thing is gonna be the training, what training they're gonna have to go through. And right now, our part-timers are getting the minimum or the mandatory 40 hours per week. I think they're gonna change the training. There was some talk because it used to be they had over 200 hours of training for part-time police officers compared to the 960 or whatever hours for full-time. So they're kind of bringing it close so that, if you're working part-time and you're working the street, why don't you have the same training as an officer that's working full-time, which
No,
makes
that makes sense. I wanted to go back to the school resource officer.
Right.
You had said that it's part of that's part of your 20 members of your department, 21 officers in your department.
correct.
If we don't use it in the schools, now the 52,000 for that 20th officer was paid for by the school department. That's been pulled out.
Right.
How to put it in for next year into your budget. If you decide that you don't want to continue with the school resource officer, you still need that officer position for
Oh,
your
absolutely.
rotation for your department?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so I guess the point is the 52,000 makes sense to leave it in your budget is just from that aspect alone, I would imagine.
Yeah, because what happens is that 52,000 covers the backfill for when, if that officer was working the day shift, now he's not, and per contract, he can't be used to fill in, say, I have,
Manning?
yeah, an officer like vacation or whatever, I can't pull him from the school right now to put him in. I have to backfill that position. So now he would be working days, he'd be added to the day shift or whatever, and so that we'd have one extra body. So
I'm glad Carter put it, I'm glad Carter funded it in the proposed budget. Makes
yes,
sense to keep that. Evan, have you given that any thought? Have you had a chance to think about that? And do you have a position on that?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that. I had a 4-year-old trying to grab my iPad. So,
Talk about the school resource officer being put into the police budget. And I asked the chief whether or not he thought it made, regardless of whether or not it stays in the school, do we need that as part of our 20 sworn officer for rotation purposes? And he said yes. And so I didn't know if you've had a chance to think about it, look at it, talk about it.
no, but I mean, my general approach is, if the chief thinks he, needs that, then that's what we try to attain. And we had done something similar in Munson. We pulled the SRO out of the school budget actually 2 years back for 2 reasons. One is it was politicized in Munson between the school and the town, and that took that right off the table. And then also, when you get to the summer months, the chief could deploy that officer elsewhere at his discretion. So that's how we had done it. And that's, if that's good with the chief, then that's my general approach.
if I
Go ahead,
may,
Chief.
like Evan said, during the summertime, the officer, takes his vacation and, but naturally he doesn't have 8 weeks vacation, whatever, all in the summer, but we use him, he fills the shifts. He actually goes into one of the rotations, the 4 on 2 off, because right now he works 5 and 2. And depending on how things work out, we might just put him back in the rotation. He'll be assigned to the school when he can go, and that'll be it. If the school's not going to be giving us any money, we might have to do that because things are getting busy. Now that it's been quiet for the past year, but they're picking up, and they're picking up with a furor. So if I need to use them, we're going to use them, and we're going to have to change the parameters. I know Worcester's talking about, I heard possibly even pulling them out completely. That wasn't an option until the police reform bill. And, if we have to do what we have to do, because we got to watch the whole town. The schools are very important, but we got the whole town that we've got to keep an eye on too and respond to calls and whatnot. So And you'd asked about budgeting and all that, and right now we're working, as a matter of fact, going to be hosting a class in June for crisis intervention. I have got 3 officers trained. We'll be starting a program in not too distant future, and it's going to cost some money, although hopefully we're going to get some grants for this, for working with doing follow-up on drug overdoses and mental health issues. We're going to look to get in league with one of the local crisis intervention places. Like, you got Community Health Link, you've got Riverside, we've got some other options that we can go with through UMass to have a counselor or somebody come out and do follow-up with individuals that we deal with, like I said, for overdoses and or mental health issues. That's an important thing, and that's part of the police reform. And if that gets mandated that we have to have somebody like that, they're not going to do it for free. So that's the discussion for another day. But there's nothing in the budget for that. I'm hoping that there's going to be grants out there through the Department of Mental
What's
Health.
the total, Chief, what's the total cost of that program?
Right now, it's the cost is just sending them to the school. I'm going to be sending 3 officers to school. That's free. It's just going to be the backfill in overtime, because it's a 40-hour, it's a 5-day class.
Yep.
That's in June, but we should be able to handle that. I'm not worried so much about that. But in the future, having the officers come out and then going to houses, and that'll be just like one day a week and maybe every other week. Fortunately, we don't have a big overdose problem, or and whatever work they can do while they're on duty, they can come in, get on their computer and do the reports and whatnot to the state. But that remains to be seen, what other costs there'll be with that. The biggest cost is going to be getting somebody, a counselor or a psychologist, whatever they send out, social worker out. And that, I'm hoping, will be funded through grant money. I hear there's grant money available through DMH. So we'll be applying for that.
Your 911 grant this year, how much was it?
A little over 56,000.
That's consistent with years past, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for the chief from anybody? Wow, Chief, they're making it easy on you this year.
Way too easy.
Evan,
If
we
keep
usually put
doing
the
this
chief
and I'm
with the
having
ringer.
problems with my internet, you're gonna have to get me a new router. I don't know. It's never happened before.
Well, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad you're here. The finance committee really appreciates you taking time out of your Saturday to come in and see us. And we really do appreciate the time that you've given us this morning. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else for the chief? All right, Chief, thank you very, very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Take care.
So we are still a half hour. Actually, we're 45 minutes ahead of schedule now. Oh, go ahead, Sue.
I have emailed Mickey and Cheryl and asked them if they could come in at 10:15. I was thinking the chief was going to go till about 15 more minutes, but
No, that's all right.
obviously. Mhm.
Well, you know something? What we can do, since we have 15 minutes to kill, we can jump to the end of our agenda and take care of a couple of items in the at the end of the agenda, and then we can take a 5-minute break. And then hopefully the fire chief will be here and we can jump right into the fire department budget. So if it's okay with the finance committee, I'd like to move to the end of the agenda right now. And I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for February 10th.
Moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
All those in, any further discussion? All those in favor by roll call, Sue Robbins,
Aye.
Barry,
aye.
Irene? Did I lose Irene?
I said aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Andy,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
go Paul,
I wasn't here, so I abstain. I
Dan,
Aye.
Mark, aye. So we'll consider that passed. 7 in favor, 1 abstention. Sue, we do not have the gatehouse bill.
That is correct.
Okay, so we'll skip over that. Going into the other items here on the recap sheet and departmental turnbacks, does anybody have any questions for Mary or Evan relative to those 2 items? You've had a chance to look them over. Is there anything we need to follow up on? Please, not all at once. Excellent. So we'll go to the next item, and that is the conflict of interest and open meeting law certificates that we have to do. So, every 2 years you're required to update your conflict of interest training. It's a very, simple process to go on the state website, go through and get your certificate. We need to do that, and once you get your certificate, we need to give it to Sue so that she can file all of those with the town clerk. So please, if you haven't done your required conflict of interest training, please do that. You can contact Sue, and Sue, you have a link to the website and all that to give to people, right? Yes,
Yes,
no, maybe?
everything was sent out and.
Oh, so everybody
I'll
has
say
it. Okay, good.
Just send it to me. I have it from Dan and Sue. Thank you.
Excellent. I'll send you mine on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anything else on that? All right. Then moving on to term renewals. Irene and Dan, do you want to continue on the Finance Committee? You do? Dan?
Yep.
Excellent. I'm glad. And then we did have a resignation from Eric, so I would entertain a motion to accept Eric's resignation from the Finance Committee.
Don't move.
Move.
No.
Yeah, I know, we could say no, but I guess we should.
Motion, we move, we approve Eric's resignation with regret.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor by roll call, Sue?
Aye.
Barry? Barry, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Irene?
Irene, aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Go, Paul.
Aye.
Mark, aye. Okay, so why don't we take a 10-minute break? Go ahead, Sue.
Would you like me to send a little thank you note out on behalf of the Finance Committee?
Yes, please do. Please do. I appreciate that. Thank you very, very much.
Mark,
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Sue.
I also have a certificate that I made up several years ago when I was chairman, a couple of times. And so when we would, Finance Committee member would leave, I had a little Finance Committee certificate that I would give them. So if you'd like me to start.
Oh, sure, please do.
I could do that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, why don't we take a 10-minute break, and we will come back at 10:15, and hopefully Mickey and Cheryl will be here. And I know just before we do that, Evan did meet with Mickey. I sent out an email last night to all of you with Evan's update to the budget. So obviously, once Mickey gets here, we'll go through the budget, and then we'll give Evan an opportunity to describe what changes he's proposing to that, so that we can all deal with that as well. Everybody did get that memo, right? I didn't miss anybody when I sent it out.
Yeah, you
Go,
got it.
Paul.
I got it. Mark, quick question is he's not scheduled until 10:45. So
I know. So Sue sent him an email. You were out of the room. Sue
Okay.
sent him an email and asked him to come on at 10:15.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. All right, everybody. Why don't we take a 10-minute break, and we'll see you back here at 10:15. Thank you very much. Okay, Cheryl and the chief are here. I did mute you because there was some noise coming over when they were trying to talk. So if you guys want to unmute yourself, that's good. Thank you so much for coming on a little bit earlier. We're way ahead of schedule. So we did ask you guys to jump on board a little early today, and I appreciate you doing that. So let me share my screen, put it up here, and then I would ask Mickey, you and Cheryl to walk us through. I know you had a meeting with Evan this past week, and Evan sent out a memo to us that showed some potential changes in the budget. I guess we can address that with Evan when we get to it, but if you want to walk us through your budget, I'd appreciate it. You can unmute. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Do you want to go through the whole budget, or do you just want to highlight the stuff that we had questions on? I know we spent.
Well, why don't you walk us through, Mickey, why don't you walk us through the whole budget, and then Evan can supplement, and you guys can talk about some of the changes that Evan made to it. So if you want to just take us through it, that I'd appreciate it.
All right, so I guess we'll start with what, 5112?
Yep.
Okay, that's department head salary. I know Evan made an adjustment to fund that fully starting July 1st. Instead of January 1st.
So the 66 that was in the original budget from Carter anticipated a new chief coming on board in January, and this now we're gonna change it to a July 1st date.
From what I'm told, yes.
Evan, you want to address that now that we're here?
Sure. So I've had meetings with obviously both the chief and Cheryl, as well as the select board meeting that was held on Tuesday, and the select board opted to start their chief search committee and consulting acquisition now for a July 1 start date. So what that does to that 5112 line in the fire department budget is move it from 66,000 northward to, roughly 130 or a little bit more.
So the process, Evan, moving forward is to start the search now, have a department head, have a full-time chief on board effective July 1st. Is there any overlap with the current chief? I mean, Mickey, when's your, what's the plan? You're gonna retire when the new chief starts, so there wouldn't be an overlap?
This all hit me this week. I talked to Evan on Thursday, and then I got his email yesterday, so I'm trying to dissolve all of this, so I
Okay.
really don't know what the status
Understood.
is. I mean, the way it looks to me is I'm gone July 1st. That's the way I see it at this point, so I don't know. We haven't had any other discussion, so I don't know where we are with that.
So there's still some follow-up that has to be done between you and Evan and the board.
In the select board, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, the select board has made that decision to go ahead, because come May, when they vote for the strong chief, it actually gets out of Evan's hands and it goes to the select board's hands. So
The select board would be the appointing authority for the
That's
strong
correct.
chief.
Yeah.
Okay, understood. All right, that answers
so
that
it's kind of
question.
like
So
a cloudy area right now. I mean, I don't know what's going on yet, so trying to dissolve all of this at this point.
understood. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yep.
So administrative personnel?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the only thing I can say is my part-time position isn't funded. I don't know. He's a union employee, so I don't know the logistics of, is he going to get laid off? Is he going to collect unemployment? Or is it going to be a union issue and they file agreements? That I can't answer.
How many firefighters are we budgeting in this line item of 400? These line items aren't lining up that good. Is this request for firefighters 415,000?
Well, you got that Proposition 2.5 override. So there was, can't recall the exact amount going to the fire department each year.
There was, the proposition override, our budget originally was for $308,540. And then the override gave us $106,460 for one new person, two new people. I don't know, but that's just what was in our fiscal 21. That was what was given to us in our fiscal 21 budget. So that number was, and it totaled 415,000. So that number just carried over to fiscal 22.
So I am so confused with this particular line item. So the 415 that Carter put in here. Evan,
No.
do you know what that's supposed to cover?
Carter did not put the 415, and he put, the request was 415, and I see what you're saying with your, it's not lining up here. The request
I
was
can't
415.
understand what it is.
Yep, the request was 415 and Carter had funded it at 350.
Oh, so that's this number right here.
Correct.
Oh, okay, I got you. So that 350 covers what?
Well, I'm assuming 2 full-time firefighters and then the the rest of the staff, which we have a total of 45 firefighters.
So
Right.
that would
so
be the
it-
call firefighters and such?
Yeah,
Yes.
so Carter's budget note is approved 200,000 for the called firefighters, 70,000 for the fire prevention officer, 70,000 for the health and safety officer, and 10,000 for janitorial.
Okay,
So his budget,
Now, in talking to the chief, that doesn't budget for backup for, say, the fire prevention officer when who's doing the inspections and when they go on vacation or anything like that. So I'm probably going to adjust that number up slightly to accommodate that.
all right, so the 350 though is where we're at right now for those two full-time positions and then the call firefighters.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess my question back to the chief is you had originally requested 415. And that was what, for another position?
We didn't request that. I mean, those were the figures from the 2.5 override, and we just plugged those in. So
Okay, so this was just a Carter adjustment to what is moving forward. And so Evan, you obviously have to look at that and make a
Yep.
final decision on what that number is going to be.
Yes.
Understood. So then the next item is the yearly stipend for the
Stipend.
officers. Is
Yep.
that's 6,500? That's
Yes.
consistent with previous years?
Yep. I mean, everybody gets a yearly stipend, excluding the chief now, because that's going to be a full-time position. But your captains, your lieutenants, and your firefighters.
Okay,
So-
and then the overtime number here, that is not for the firefighters overtime, that's for staff overtime?
clerical,
Clerical.
Overtime. Okay, so that's for you, Cheryl, to cover, and that's $3,200?
yes.
So if there's overtime for the full timers now moving forward, this budget doesn't have any money in there for that overtime if they have to come back on calls or work overtime? Or would that just come out of the 200,000?
That's correct.
That, I guess the plan would be it would just come out of the 200,000.
Evan, are you comfortable with that?
I don't know. I'm
Don't you
gonna-
like how I'm putting you right on the spot?
No,
That's just how it-
and that's fine. Short answer, I guess, for now is I don't know. We'll have to drill down on that a little bit further.
Okay.
Um,
This is, I guess, Evan and Mickey and Cheryl, this is a very difficult budget to put together because technically it's going to be the first year, fiscal year 22, where you're going to have full-time officers and a full-time chief. So everything that you're developing now is just your best guess at this time
Best
on what the
guess,
costs are going to
Waco,
be.
yeah.
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 So once, I think, Evan, once you get 22 under the belt, 23 might be a little bit easier to prepare for. Might
well,
have to do some adjustments.
especially since that'll be the strong chief reporting to the Board of Selectmen, so it's gonna be real easy for me.
Hey, nice try, Evan. The budget's still yours.
I know.
Well, if you want me to track or set it up so that we can track the overtime as he's using it and take it out of the 5123, but still get an idea of what he's using for overtime, I can do that as well.
Cheryl, I think it's important moving forward to understand costs and understand what, to prepare for it. I'd like to see that called out separately too and not get lost in the shuffle of the call firefighters. You might still need $200,000 to cover the call salaries. And now all of a
Oh, we
sudden, if you're using that for overtime,
We
right?
definitely need the 200 for the call salaries.
I agree. I feel that the overtime should be called out of line 5123.
I think so. I'd like to
That's
see
a
that.
budgeting nightmare, having
Yes.
it all together.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Mary. And I think it'll make it easier in future years to pull that out. And
Track it, yeah.
but it's so hard to know how much overtime you're gonna spend for those two full-timers because you've never had them before. You don't know how often they're gonna come back. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, Evan, what we might want to do, if you do track it separately, we could either do a line item transfer at the end of the year, or that's what we have the reserve fund for
Yep.
the finance committee, and we can sort of help you out.
And I
And
think
that way
that's
you'll have the exact costs.
some of that, I think that's what we're gonna have to do. I think we're gonna, give ourselves a best guess or a best good faith estimate and see where we think we might end up without, going too high, so we're not wasting money, but then just everyone be on the same page that we might have to do some adjustments come the fall or spring to make that whole.
Excellent.
Can I
So then
just-
the Mickey, the 45,000 for training and certification, what's that cover?
That covers the pay for the firefighters for going to training.
So that's outside of the 200,000 for them.
200,000.
Okay, so this is for specific training for them to come in. Okay,
Right, but can I just step back on the 5123 for a minute?
please do.
For that health and safety officer, I had nothing to do with that. Even posting that job. That was all Carter. Any input I had was ignored. So I had talked to Evan about even putting a freeze,
Yep.
put a hold on this position, because we're hiring firefighters without a full-time department head. Who's gonna supervise these people while they're here? You could have, 20 Indians and no chiefs. I mean, you gotta have somebody to report to, and it's maybe the new full-time chief coming in has a different idea or wants to do something different with that position. I mean, I can understand funding it for next year, but I know it's posted now, but I don't feel comfortable about hiring somebody at this point.
Well, let me ask you this, Mickey. So the new chief comes in, the plan is to have 2 full-timers with the chief starting next fiscal year.
Yeah.
So depending on whether it's a safety officer or whether or not it's just a firefighter or whatever, you would need that full-time salary going into next year regardless, correct? Okay.
I just,
We just don't know what to call it right now.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense, Mickey. That makes
Yep.
sense. Go, Paul, go ahead. You have a question?
Do I have a question? No?
Oh, I thought I saw Go Paul's hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute. No, I was saying that I thought I heard the chief say that the position is open right now and he would suggest pulling the position and waiting until the new hire. So there could be money that we could save this year in the budget if we do that.
But the way I would look at that, Go Paul, and for Evan, if it's gonna be a recurring cost the following year,
Right.
I want to build it in the base now. So
Yep.
that all of a sudden in fiscal year 23, we're not getting hit with a big full-time salary. If the intention is to have a full-time chief and 2 full-time firefighters, excuse me, regardless of what the position title is called, safety officer, captain, firefighter, whatever.
Right.
At least we have it in the base and we can understand the cost going into next year. Does that make sense, Evan?
I agree 100%. So regardless, so Chief and I spoke about whether or not, it should be filled now. I'm still in ongoing conversation with the board on that. And we're reviewing that, but regardless of hire now or wait and let the chief make his determination, his or her determination, excuse me. That 70K, I think, should be in there ready to go.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Does anybody else on the finance committee have any questions relative to fire department salaries and wages? All right, thank you very much for that. So now we get into,
Actually, I have a question.
go ahead, go Paul, please.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't see your
When
hand
we
up.
spoke, when Sue and I had talked to the chief and Cheryl, if you go back to the training line item, correct
right
me if
here?
I'm wrong. Yeah, you had said that you would like that to be 60,000. Did I get that right,
In a full
Cheryl?
year of training, it would be 50.
In a full year of training, it would probably be around 50 to 60. But right now, with our levels down, with 45 firefighters, so I mean, we can make the 45,000 work. I
Okay,
mean, that's very doable. And I think it'll be a good base, on next year, working at 45,000 if we have to increase it or decrease it or whatever we have to do.
okay,
with the
Thanks.
new chief on board.
Mickey, you have 45 call firefighters right now. What's the ultimate level for management wise for call firefighters? Is it 45? Is it 55? Is it 65? What's
Well,
the,
we used to be at 82.
oh,
We were the largest on-call department in the state of Massachusetts. But the way everything is today, what's required of somebody, the time and everything else, it's time consuming and a lot of commitment to be a firefighter.
Yep.
Whether it's Grafton or any community, because you send them to the academy, it's almost 300 hours. I mean, it's usually 2 nights a week and every weekend for almost 6 months. And then they have to do stuff online and homework and tests and quizzes. But when they come out, I mean, they take the test, they're a firefighter 1, 2. And but we get it's a big investment with zero return at the beginning, like I had mentioned to the other members Monday. We're probably looking at $10,000 per person to start with zero return. So, but that's what it is. And yeah, we do have 6 applicants right now, and we'll go through those. Because what happens is you send them for a physical, and that's $600. That 600, that physical is good for 1 year towards the academy. So if they don't make the academy within a year, they have to have another physical. So now I'm already into it for $1,200, and they haven't gone through the academy yet. And it's happened a few times to us.
Yep.
So you kind of look at it, if younger people getting out of high school and they're going to go to college, we have to weigh it in and say, are you going to be able to do this commitment while you're in college? If not, then we suggest waiting till they've done their college and come back, because they can't, it's not beneficial to the Grafton Fire Department.
understood. Understood. Any other questions on salaries and wages? Okay, excellent. So now we can get into the expense line item. If you want to walk us through that, energy?
Well, that pays for all the gas, the electricity for all 3 stations, pays the utilities, so.
So I saw you asked for 30, Carter cut you back to 25, and FY20 you spent 21, but I'm imagining in FY20 because of COVID and things like that, that there was less people in the station for whatever reason. Is 25 going to cut it for you next year? If the stations are going to be more operable, or do you think we need
Well,
to
no,
look at that 30?
they were still operable. It's just, we don't know if they're going to be cost increase with energy. I know my natural gas bill is gone pretty high, so I don't know what it's like, and we have natural gas in all 3 fire stations, so we don't know. It's hard to predict what the costs are going to be. You always think it's going to cost a little bit more for electricity and gas, so that's why we budget it, so we don't have, it's easier to return it.
Yep, no, I agree. I agree. Eileen?
Our state, all of our stations were functioning as usual. COVID didn't affect that at all.
Oh, they were, okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
I
My
mean,
question is, how will having full-time people affect potentially something like this? Where will those people be, quote, residing?
But that's going to be a Monday through Friday deal, and that's going to be out of fire headquarters where we have people here anyway. We house the ambulance, so I mean, we have personnel here all the time. And we've
There
always
won't be
had
any impact costs falling up on what Irene is asking.
Yeah,
'cause
it won't impact because it's going to be a Monday through Friday day stuff, and Cheryl's here Monday through Friday, and we've always had people here for doing inspections and stuff, so that shouldn't change at all.
Okay, and your headquarters is in the new fire station, correct?
Yep, on Upton Street, yep. And the other 2 stations are unmanned, so I mean, that's not going to change.
Just out of curiosity, I think someone had brought it up. I'm curious, and maybe it's on the capital list and I just didn't catch it. When in the near future or far future do we need to update either of the other 2 stations?
Well, I think to update those, it depends if you're going to start manning them with career people. then there's gonna need to be upgrades, because are they gonna stay there 24, is it gonna be on a 24-hour shift? So they're gonna need sleeping quarters and so forth. And we would have to have male and female bathrooms.
I don't think you have to anymore.
No, you don't? No, maybe you don't. But, I mean, those are just a few of the upgrades that we would need to do in those stations 2 and 3, one in the north end and one in the south end.
Okay, but if we weren't looking at doing that, again, for the, let's just say the next 5 years, the buildings are fine as they are.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because even if we hired full-time firefighters within the next 5 years, most likely they would be at fire headquarters anyway. You wouldn't split up those few people to put, 2 at each station, because that still isn't enough to operate a truck. Right?
Right.
So you'd still have them coming out of the center station,
Yes.
the
Right.
headquarters.
Right.
Gotcha. All right, so repair and maintenance. Last year we spent 12,000, you asked for 30, cut it back to 27.5. How come we
Okay.
spent how come we spent half of the budget last year? Is there a reason for that?
Last year's budget, it reflects the 12,000 because a lot of our bills were coded incorrectly and taken out of another account. So if you go down to repair and maintenance of buildings and grounds, those 2 accounts, the
Oh, this one right here?
Yeah, 5250.
yes,
Yes.
those 2 accounts were coded
Incorrect.
incorrectly.
Oh, okay, so some of that 22,000 was
Exactly.
actually part of 5244.
Exactly, yeah.
Gotcha. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, it looks like the total amount is the same for both those line items when you add them up.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. So repair and maintenance on the vehicles, obviously maintenance is very, very important. 37,000 is a sufficient number to maintain our stuff?
Yes, because I mean, fortunately, we've been blessed with getting some new equipment over the last few years, so that kind of eliminates a lot of the repairs on the aging equipment.
Yep.
Because we're replacing it with new, so.
Gotcha. These line items are just hard to follow. They're not lining up. I apologize. It's very tough to follow what the numbers are. The $50,000, this 50 grand, what is that? Is that for the software maintenance contract?
You want me to speak to that, Chief?
Go ahead.
So, in meeting with the chief, it seems some of that was Carter's vision for how that was going to play out. It'd be my recommendation to move that $50,000 to make up any shortfalls we have elsewhere in the budget, and then transfer the majority of it to line 5881, which is replacement equipment. And then when the full-time chief comes on board and selects what softwares he or she would prefer to run, we can transfer money around to make that happen.
Okay.
Because in talking with the chief, there's a need for more money in replacement equipment. And since we don't know what the new person's going to prefer software-wise, make a little switch and then let them figure that out at that time.
So the new equipment that we've purchased for the department, some have been leases, some have been whatever. That's in the capital budget to pay those, not in this operating budget.
Right.
And we're fully funding those.
Yep.
Okay.
And then some of
We have
this,
no choice.
some of this comes to, I mean, you can see some of it in there, turnout gear, boots, all of that stuff. And then there's, I think the chief and I discussed, when you lease a new truck, it doesn't come with hose, nozzles, all that stuff. So every time we're doing something like that, we need to make sure we're capturing that elsewhere to equip the truck properly. Replacement equipment, things like that.
So last year, and you're gonna have to forgive my ignorance here, but last year at town meeting, and I'm sliding down here. Last year town meeting, we had an issue of $100-some-odd-thousand for equipment. It was in the budget, it was out of the budget, it was part of the override, it wasn't part of the override.
Yes.
Okay, so where is that? Is that this line item right here, this 55,000?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I'm very confused on that, Mickey. If you can explain it, I'd
Sure.
appreciate it.
Last year, when they were doing the 2.5 override, my 5880 and 5881 were brought to zero, and all those figures were put into 2.5 override. So I lost my new equipment account, my replacement equipment account, and all that money was put into the 2.5 override. But there was also an Article 17 of the annual town meeting to put that money back into my operating budget. And that got approved at town meeting. So now technically I had double the money, but I wasn't going to spend it. And then when it came to the special town meeting in November, they took that, whatever it was, 100 and something thousand, and they divvied it up into different departments and voted that on the override and eliminated it out of the fire department.
So, but the 102,000 that I see here for the FY21 budget was appropriated at some point once the override passed. We had budgeted it twice. We did it as a free cash transfer, and then we made it part of the override.
Yep.
And then when the override passed, it obviously I can see it right here. It's in your budget, the 102,000. So now for next year, that Carter is recommending that be reduced in half to 55,000.
And
He didn't like the idea of us replacing old equipment all at once. He said,
it's like you need two knee replacements. You don't have the two knees done at the same time. But and Sue will vouch for me. I mean, because I've worked with Sue I think I've been chief as long as she's been on the finance committee. We built up that replacement equipment account, and that's how I replaced my air packs over 8 years. I've always been replacing my turnout gear. We replaced portable radios that were aging. So it's different things that come up. So I mean, yeah, I'm trying to replace some rescue tools that I'm trying to get them all uniform, because two stations work two different types of tools, and I'm trying to get them all the same. And now's the perfect time because they're both aged to the point where they need to be replaced. So I'm trying to replace everything uniformly.
Well,
so that wasn't us, that was Carter.
No, I understand. So Evan and Sue, but I see your hand is up, and I'll go to you in a second. But it seems to me that the town meeting and the voters made a decision that we want $100,000 in the fire department budget for replacement equipment.
Mm-hmm.
That was the vote that was made by the town meeting. That was the finance committee fully supported that $100,000 last year, and the town meeting supported it. So it seems to me that once that gets in the budget, I don't want to get into a situation like the police cruisers. We have the money in there for a purpose, and then all of a sudden we take it away. It seems to me, Evan, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes here, but it seems to me that number should be the 100,000, because that's the commitment the town made to the fire department for equipment. Am I missing something?
Are you asking me if you're missing something?
I'm asking everybody. Am I?
Oh, okay. Because I wasn't here then, but in the review I did, I had also agreed. I mean, I was going to bring it to the number that was here, because I don't know that other history. But if we're moving around the tech and some other things, I can make that line back to 100 without taking away anything from anywhere else.
Yeah, it just seems to me, Evan, that there's a commitment for equipment of 100,000. Let's in the voters voted it. It was part of the override. It was voted at town meeting last spring. So I say we try to keep the number at what the fire chief and had recommended, but that's just my opinion. Go ahead, Sue.
I agree.
This is one of the line items that I was a little upset about when we went over the budget, because the finance committee asked Mickey several years ago to get on a cycle of his replacement equipment. Because one year there was a huge, I mean, he had to come in with the number of turnout gear and some other things, and it amounted to a huge amount of money. And
Mhm.
so we asked him to get all of those replacement equipment on a cycle so that we could replace it annually every year. So when I saw this at 55,000, I thought we're going backwards instead of forwards. And we've always, and the fire department's been really good about keeping them on cycle, knowing when they needed it, and they've done a good job. So when I saw this, I was a little upset because they've been following their recycling, their rotation program, excellent, doing an excellent job. So
So you're in agreement that we should try to get that number back up to the
yeah,
100.
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sue. I agree with you. All right. Does anybody, let me unshare the screen here for a second so I can see everybody. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so the so I think Evan said that the software money, that 50,000, is going to be used at least in part to bring up the equipment back to what it previously was, the department request. But we're also cutting that part-time position because the software is supposed to increase efficiency. So does that mean that we need the that part-time position back? I'm not sure how that kind of shakes out.
So you're talking about the part-time position in 5113?
Yeah.
Don't have it right in front of me, but it's the it says in the text there that it's
Yes. So
yeah.
I get you. So the way that I'm thinking we will leave it, and again, this is trying to clean up other things in the budget as well, is that we would leave it at the 47.7 with the idea that the incoming full-timer would determine the level of staffing needed there, and we could always bump that line up later if need be. So that's a union position. I don't think there's been any discussion with the union about what's going to happen there. So my thought is that we leave it alone, figure out what the new person wants for technology, and then clean that up later. And if that part-time position needs to be left in place, then we would just transfer money and fund it. Just because there's too many unknowns. So one of the challenges here is that we're working in, and I know this is a challenge for the chief as well. We're kind of in a little bit of a gray area here that we're trying to navigate at the same time as doing this budget process. This is Carter's budget, and that's not a dig on Carter. This is his vision for how this is going to go. Mary and I are trying to back in between what the departments think they need, what FinCom thinks it should be, and what is actually available. So I'm kind of inclined to say, leave that 5113 alone and back into it later once we figure out what the new full-time person wants to do. I'm also very much open to having the conversation of, if we need to try to find that $20,000, I will try to find it. I just haven't identified where that would come from today.
Go, Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. When we met with the fire chief and Cheryl, there was discussion about transition. And Evan, I know that early on you guys had mentioned that you're going to talk about that. I just want to mention that even when an employee quits, there is usually a transition period. You give 2 weeks of notice so that that person can transfer their knowledge to the other person.
Yes.
For such an important department like fire department, which we have discussed here about what we have done in the past, what has worked, what has not worked. I'm just recommending that we consider a transition period if the current chief is in favor of it, if it can be worked out. I just want to mention that rather than throwing the new person into the deep end and say, figure it out for such an important department as fire. So.
Yeah, I won't disagree with you there. And that was part of the conversation that I had with both Chief and Cheryl. I just want to quasi leave it at, it's in a state of ongoing conversation, and, you know, we're trying to work it out as best that we can and come up with a resolution that's good for everyone. But you're right, you don't want to lose that institutional knowledge. That would be not the optimal way to do that.
Thanks, Evan, because I heard comments like Carter did not believe in transitions. So.
I don't share that same view. So I just want to also, the funky thing about this conversation is that we're coming up on that town meeting vote. So while it's currently my appointment, it will theoretically soon not be my appointment. But I also want to make sure we understand that I'm also the political newcomer. So I tend to think that I'll go along with, you know, what the board's vision is as well. So, you know, we're all in that state of flux, and I think we're going to do the best we can and try to figure this out.
Any, go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, about how many fire events do we experience each year?
In the last week,
little-
several.
A little, yeah, they usually come all at once. A little over 500, and that's non-medical. That's all,
500?
and that's not medical. That's all fire incidents.
That's more than one a day. Wow.
Yes. Sometimes we have 8 a day.
Not every call is an actual fire, though, Paul. So don't
Right.
think they're fighting 2 fires a day.
Okay, that includes false alarms and all
That's
that.
calls for service. That's any call for service.
Okay, that's all incidents, whether it's.
But
an
lately, there's been, you had 2 major fires in the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
Second question is, do we charge for a false alarm where you have to roll people out? And
Didn't the town, I think the town had set it up through the police department that after so many false alarms, you'd start getting charged, but no one ever.
But that's over. You'd have to have 3 false alarms of the same false alarm in the same residence or business, whatever, within a year. And then then it would be a $25 fine.
oh, for Pete's sake, okay.
Yeah. And
But
then,
it's a non-criminal thing, and I don't
Right.
think anything ever happened.
and then there's a false alarm where someone's system is malfunctioning versus an accidental alarm,
Okay.
you know, where someone did something that set off the, you know, so I guess no one wanted to be the one that decided, you know, like if you burn toast, is that a false alarm?
Okay.
Technically, it's considered a structure fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I live in a neighborhood, the houses are little ranch houses. They're about 70 years old, and balloon construction was the thing of the day. We know now that makes it easy for fire to run right up to your roof and your house is gone in 2 minutes. Are there fire prevention techniques, maybe even remedial techniques that can be applied that would either suppress or eliminate fire issues?
That would probably be with a contractor and putting in fire stops in, you know, so that's all I could say. I mean, at this point, I mean.
You mean specific for fire safety for balloon construction, or?
For the way they tell me the houses the way they used to be built. So
Right.
we're building houses or something. But it's the idea. You got several $100,000 in a structure. Is there something that can be applied, or I don't know, fire suppression chemicals that could be poured onto a house that would prevent future fires? I mean, does that make any sense at all?
Nothing that I'm aware of. That would be a great,
The state's trying to pass mandatory residential sprinkler systems, whether they be dry or wet, but that's, I don't know that that's going as well as they'd hope.
irregardless, I mean, with balloon construction, if it's in the wall and
Yeah.
it goes up, a sprinkler's not gonna stop until it breaks out.
Right. And that's for the old houses.
Right.
Right.
So if you're going to be doing some kind of house remediation, reconstruction or something, yeah, you must put in the fire stops.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking a little, well, the sprinkler systems would be one issue, but I'm wondering, are there other chemicals? Are there things that can be applied to existing houses of any structure, of any construction technique that would minimize or eliminate fires?
Well, I don't know, but that would be a great invention if it isn't there.
You mean like treated sheetrock and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Evan, these were the questions from Barry we were anticipating earlier in the meeting.
Oh, that's.
So now he's come to life now.
There you go.
But again, you have balloon construction, so if it's in the wall, you have to get something to stop it from within the frame and the wall.
Yeah, so it's the fire stop that,
It's gonna be the fire stop that's gonna be put in.
Yeah, but I'm outside balloon construction, any construction. Sprinklers would help minimize, but a treatment, do you realize if we can come up with an idea?
I'll
that
be
would
your
actually
first
eliminate
investor.
Structure fires?
Well, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it would.
Get on that, Barry.
That's right.
I could move to Florida. Oh, no, wait a minute. I don't want
You've
to
heard
go
it
there.
here first.
Any other questions for the chief and Cheryl? Evan, I'm going to imagine that you have some more work to do on this fire budget. And what we see tonight is not going to be the final number that you're going to be bringing forward.
Right.
So obviously, once the select board figures out their process and Mickey figures out his process moving forward, you'll come back with us with a final number. And hopefully the columns will line up and we'll be able to see exactly what,
Yeah, we'll definitely, once we get to whatever, the final iteration is, we'll push that back out to the finance committee
perfect.
to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Perfect. Chief, Cheryl, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday. Thank you for coming early to see us. We really, really appreciate your time. And Mickey, whatever happens, best of luck to you moving forward, retirement, whatever. It's been nice working with you. I've worked with you now for the last 4 years on the finance committee, and I've really enjoyed it. So thank you very, very much.
I just want to say thank you, because this is definitely my last budget, because I
he's
turned
getting
60.
choked
I
up.
get to, I do, because I mean, it's been a passion of mine. I've been doing it for almost 49 years. I mean, I grew up with it. My father was a firefighter when I was born in the town of Groton, so it's my whole life. So do I get choked up? Yeah.
Of course, I don't blame you. I'd be choked up too.
And actually working with the finance
It's
committee
been
has
great.
always been a pleasure.
You know,
And not just when they agreed to what we said, because there were plenty of times where they said, no, that can't happen.
and we understand.
Because they were doing that for the good of the town, and we understood that as we were doing what we were doing for the good of the department. It's always been a pleasure to work with the finance committee. I know a lot of people dread it, but I enjoyed it.
Well, that's only because of Barry's questions.
Yeah.
That's what keeps it going. And on
Barry,
another
I'm
note, happy
joking with
birthday,
you.
Sue.
I'm joking. Well,
I-
Mickey, Cheryl, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Oh, go ahead, Sue.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I'm really going to miss meeting with Mickey and Cheryl. They've always been really easy to sit down and discuss their budget with, and never have given us a problem. So you're going to be really missed.
Oh, thank you, and happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Yes, it is her birthday today. We've
That's
been
right.
celebrating it all morning.
Actually, Chief, means Barry has given you some work to invent some new things.
Yeah, maybe that's going to be my next venture.
Yeah.
That'll keep you busy in retirement.
Oh, I've still got my regular job, so I'm still working there.
Thank you, Barry. I'm going to pass that on to the Department of Fire Services.
All right, thanks. Thank you very, very much,
Part of the
Mickey,
service.
Cheryl.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
time.
Have a
All
good
right.
weekend.
You too. I see Jen is here. Thank you, Jen, for coming in early. We appreciate it. We're running about a half hour ahead of schedule, so thank you so much for jumping on board. So you can hear us okay? Yes, no, maybe? Oh, there she is.
What was that?
I don't know. I think that was my voice going.
Mark, so
But-
I'm in here twice, right? I'm trying to do my phone and my computer and everything is back up, but I can't, I'm not being recognized.
Watch this.
Not,
Watch this
I
here.
don't know if you want me on camera or whatever, but brought in on the
I do. We want to see you. So I've just promoted your other time to panelist.
screen. There we go.
There you are. How's that? There you are. How are you? Can you hear us okay?
Okay, we in?
Yep, there you are. How are you?
All righty, how
Go
are
ahead.
you?
Yes, Barry.
You might want to get rid of the second Grafton Recreation thingy, because that's going to put a load on your internet if you have two coming out.
Well, I have one on Wi-Fi and one's on,
Okay.
and so I might back out of video too, but I was just trying to, I might call in if I need to, but I just wanted
No,
to try
we
to.
can hear you. We can hear you fine. So what I'm gonna do, Jen, is I'm gonna share the screen. I'm gonna put your budget up on the screen for everybody to see. And I would ask you to walk us through it, please. Can you see it okay?
Yep. So yeah, I mean, not much has changed. We did last year in our personnel budget, ask for a third full-time person, and we got, cut down to part-time. So that's in there again. Again, we were asking for full-time and that got cut. So the only increases in there are what looks like an increase in my salary line and the fiscal year increase for the office manager for union purposes. And then, every year for our seasonal payroll increases about $7,000. It has been due to, the minimum wages increases during that time. And then the expense line is staying, steady.
We have a couple, Jen, we have a couple of new members on the finance committee that haven't been here in the past to review the budget. And a lot of the recreation budget is paid for, maybe all of it is paid for through your revolving fund. So can you explain to the committee exactly how that works and how we figure out the funding for the recreation budget, if you don't mind?
Well, no, this operational budget is completely separate. It's fully funded by the town. We do with beach fees and such, will those revenues go back to the general fund? So there is some subsidizing of this. But all of the programs we run, the summer camps we run, those are all funded revolving fund wise. So we pay our camp staff out of the revolving fund from our camp revenues, and the programming side is completely separate.
I saw in the paper the other night, you were meeting with the select board, and I don't know if they ended up making a final decision. What was the decision for the beach this summer?
There has not been a decision. I'll be revisiting with them in a couple weeks.
Okay, so the plan, the plan right now was to have rangers instead of lifeguards, or am I understanding that correctly? Maybe I'm
That's
not
what I'm
understanding anything.
proposing. Yeah, it would just, it was giving us more time to get everyone, recertified and back, in the water, because it's been almost 2 years since they've been doing any of that. Getting some supervisory staff in place because we don't have any of that. And thought it was a better transition way for at least partly this summer. And also to knowing that we'd be turning back less revenue to you, that it might be a better financial model as well.
So, okay, thank you for that. So go back to the administrative personnel and the event coordinator that Carter didn't fund. What's the impact of not having that position in your opinion, and why we should consider adding it?
Well, no, we have the part-time. It's just we were again asking for full-time. So the part-time is obviously putting us in a better position than we're at. I just wanted to get to the full-time level and get benefited to be able to attract a more, a better candidate.
What, I guess my question then is going to full time, besides having a better salary and attract, what additional responsibilities and duties would they have?
I ideally would like them to have aquatic experience, is really what we were looking for. Overseeing the beach in our summer operations in a regular year is pretty overwhelming for me. And so, having that extra level of support and our growth has just been immense. So it's, our office manager helps out more than a typical office manager would help out on, but I'm the only other person in the department. So with the number of things that we have, the number of seasonal employees we have, it's quite a large operation to oversee.
Any questions from the finance committee on the salary section of this? No? So then into expenses, you just want to walk us through and give us a handle on what we're covering with this stuff? If you don't mind?
Yeah, again, on a typical year, a lot of it is to cover expenses at the beach, water testing, opening up and closing our bathroom facilities, weed barrier, and lifeguard supplies, rescue equipment, uniforms, those sorts of things. A lot of that did get purchased last year in anticipation of running the beach, which obviously did not happen. So that will come in a little bit less, I would expect, this year. But we also need to purchase more things like, PPE and cleaning supplies and sanitizer that we wouldn't normally either. So I'm not sure how that bottom line will end up, but those are a big chunk of our expenses in here. That's what the communications are. That's for the internet at the beach and the phone use at the beach as well.
So the fact that you don't have to rebuy those supplies this year because you weren't open next year, in FY23, you would have to buy them. So playing around with the budget this year isn't really going to help you in future years, and it'll show an inflation down the road that you may not want to deal with. So I get that.
Well, it's
That makes
like when
sense.
you look at the personnel lines in this professional technical line, last year we took the seasonal payroll and transferred it into expenses. And so that's why you see those weird jumps from the salary line above and this professional and technical below.
Okay, any questions from the finance committee on the expenses of recreation moving forward? So last year, if I remember correctly, there was a CPA article to do some improvements on playgrounds.
Mhm.
Where are we with that?
Very far ahead. So that was, it's two different parts of it, actually. So the seasonal payroll money last year that got transferred in expenses is to help address those ADA needs as well. And that was the, plumbing issues, ramping issues, signage issues. And so we've been doing that, and a huge part of that is done. And then the CPA portion was more specifically for the routes within parks to get to amenities and the facilities, and then to the playgrounds, and then travel within the playgrounds. So the two biggest portions that are left are still regrading that main walkway at Norcross as you enter the park towards the ball field, and then the path around Airport Park to reach all the amenities there. So they're supposed to be coming back next week to start it up all again. So
Wow, you are way ahead. Is that ahead of schedule? Ahead of the schedule you had anticipated?
cruising along. We were ready to roll in October, and then town meeting kept getting bumped back. And as soon as we got we passed, they started the next week. So they've been rocking and rolling.
That's awesome. That's good. That's good to hear. That's very, very good to hear. All right. I don't have any other questions. Does any other member of the finance committee have questions relative to the recreation budget? Great job, Jen. Looks really, really good. Barry?
Thank you.
Jen, I guess I missed this in our meeting. Between a ranger and a lifeguard?
The difference?
Yeah. We're talking about.
Well, a park ranger is.
Go ahead.
a park ranger is more of a, like a beach monitor, their attendants, right? They'll be, like we have parking attendants now, when they come into the beach to check them in and those sorts of things. But just fully more of a monitor thing, making sure people are following the guidelines, you know, maintaining the bathrooms, that people are following the rules. But we're not gonna, you know, we wouldn't be, you know, blowing the whistle for people to stop pushing the rafts or, you know, those sorts of things. So it was just to kind of keep order up there and, you know, get the staff back in action again.
They're not going into the water is the main difference?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
And has it been resolved as to whether Silver Lake will be open or not?
No.
Okay.
I think it's going to be open. It's just in the matter of how our staffing operation is going to be.
And the
And that's what
Rangers-
you're going back before the select board on that one to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's really for them. I need them to decide the beach fees. Number one, that's their main thing, but was looking for just support with, you know, the liability and financial, you know, portion of the operation this summer.
Gotcha. Evan,
Just real quick, I think, and this backs up a little bit, Mr. Chairman, but 5114 administrative personnel. Jen had brought forward that there was an error in the accounting there. It was 71,020 last year. The request was 104,450, and then it was leveled back out, but it really should be 73,792 when you back the two. So that'll look a little different when you get your final.
yeah, after we're done with after we meet with Barbara, I want to take a couple of minutes, if it's okay with you and Mary, Evan, to talk about what your process is to readjust the budget and what your plan is. So I'd like to spend a little bit of time understanding that, because I know there's a lot of issues that I know you're dealing with, and I know you guys haven't finalized your revenues yet. I know Mary's been jumping all over that, trying to figure out what the revenues are going to be. So it'd be good to understand the process moving forward and what the finance committee can expect.
Sure.
In terms of a final.
It's
final
a
budget.
general wing it philosophy that we're doing.
Understood. Hey, I've survived 36 years of municipal government doing that. So I applaud that effort.
But
I
no,
applaud it as well.
we'll certainly, we can have that conversation. Yeah.
Excellent. Go ahead, Barry. Yes, Barry. I said yes.
Oh, sorry. On line item 5112, there's an interesting little chop. At the very end, it says summer camp and facilitating over 300. So that's really over 300 programs.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
That's good. That's a very, very busy recreation department. Jen, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday to come in and join us. We appreciate the time that you've given. We appreciate all the work you're doing, and thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Barbara, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you coming in a little bit early.
No problem.
So what I'm going to do is what we've been doing is I've been sharing the screen with the budget, and would ask you to just walk us through, cover anything you want to cover, any discussions you have, or anything you want us to hear and consider. It's all yours.
Okay, first I want to wish Sue Robbins a happy birthday today.
Sue, you are so popular with everybody today.
Yes.
So you're welcome. So my personnel, really, it just shows an increase for everybody's salaries. So there's me, I have one union worker who's an office manager. I have a full-time transportation coordinator and van driver. And then I have a part-time outreach worker, a part-time activities coordinator who works up to only 10 hours a week. And then I have a part-time chef. We also have two part-time van drivers who aren't included in the town's budget. They're paid for out of the state formula grant and through the WRTA. So hiring those two van drivers has been a godsend, because now we're never short a driver for rides. So it's worked out really, really well.
During,
As-
Barbara, if I can interrupt you for a second, during COVID, how busy has the van been?
We're just starting to really pick up. We still have to follow the COVID guidelines. So we have to social distance on the van. So we're only able to allow maybe 2 or 3 passengers on the van at a time. But people are feeling more comfortable going out now. We've, through this whole process, because of the Grafton Nurses Association and Dr. Tina Thoreau and St. James Outreach, we've been able to offer free rides for everybody. So anybody can get to a medical appointment for free. We've been taking people to get to the vaccine, and that's all been free of charge. So it has just started to pick up. We started back with offering services in the beginning of July.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Our expenses, as far as expenses go, they haven't increased since FY14. In fact, they've decreased $720. So we do really well with what we have. And it seems to work. I have a craft group who raises a lot of money for the senior center. So they raise approximately about $5,000 a year. Even during COVID, they had a booth at Off the Common Antiques and they raised like $2,700. So we're able to, work within those guidelines, and I'm pretty proud to say that we haven't asked for an increase in this whole time in the expense items. And other than that, I mean, people might think, what are you doing right now? But we are probably busier now than we have ever been. Our office has always been staffed the 5 days a week during this whole time, even during when the building has been closed. We've still been having Meals on Wheels go out of the Grafton site through Other Nutrition. And we've offered grab and go meals as well. So seniors are able to call 2 days in advance and come and pick up their meal. I was able to get a grant, so we were able to purchase senior-friendly picnic tables outside, so people were able to eat outside. We've made outreach calls. We've done wellness checks both by phone and in person. And just to give you an example of how important like the grab and go meals were, we had a great success story with a senior. Her friend actually called the senior center saying that she just didn't think her friend was, feeling okay. So I then got a call at home from the office, and I tried calling this individual. There was no answer. Went over to her house, rang the doorbell, no answer. Luckily, the door was unlocked, and she was sitting in a recliner, but was unresponsive. So we were able to call the ambulance, get her to the hospital. She stayed for a few days, and then actually my husband and I picked her up on a Saturday and brought her back home. So the woman is doing fantastic right now. So that's awesome. Was how important those programs are.
No question.
Outreach worker Lisa Kelly and I did training over this whole period to become a SNAP intake site. And that's an intake site we're doing for every resident in the town of Grafton. And for those who don't know, SNAP is a supplemental nutrition assistance program. So now we're able to actually file claims directly into the DTA Connect system, and we're able to track that progress. So that's come in very handy because we also facilitate the Grafton Strong account. So we can ask an individual who's coming in who needs an assistance, have you filed for SNAP? Have you filed for fuel assistance? Lisa's done a great job doing the fuel assistance applications this whole time. We've delivered.
Is that position, Barbara, is that position part-time?
It's 24 hours a week.
Is that enough?
It is right now. I mean, Lisa does a lot off hours as well. But we all kind of contribute to make it work. So right now it is okay, but as we open up, we'll see what happens.
Well, that's if you had to look for an increase in the budget moving forward, that would be the position you would look at?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. We deliver gift bags to seniors in housing. So there's about 200 seniors in housing. We delivered on 3 separate occasions. Our friends group they paid for it. So we put a gift certificate in there for a meal from a local restaurant, and it would be delivered to the senior's house. We also put, word search books, table talk pies, whatever PPE supplies, whatever we could put, in the bag. We've held several drive-through barbecues. So we actually barbecued on site, and the seniors would come in during a scheduled period of time and pick up their bag with their barbecued items. That was really successful. And we also did a holiday gift card drive, and this was the first time we did that. We've always had our holiday giving tree, but this year we did a holiday gift card drive and asked for gift cards to local businesses so that it would be a win-win for the seniors and the businesses in town. And we collected over 340 gift cards. So we delivered those in person to everybody in a special card that said, "Oh dear, what a year." And everybody was so appreciative, and the town really stepped up and helped with that. So we've just been very busy, and especially now with the vaccine, we're inundated with calls. I don't know, I think people think we have a magic wand and we can get them to the front of the line, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So hopefully something will open up, and I'm glad that they are going to be offering the vaccine to everybody in housing, and that will be on the 15th of March. So that's a good thing as well.
You've been helping the seniors schedule vaccine appointments when you can?
Yeah, so we were given an allotment about, actually I found out about it the afternoon before, of 120 vaccines at the Worcester Senior Center. So that was for the age group of 75 and older. So we actually called everybody in our system who was 75 and older and asked if they wanted to go get the vaccine. So we booked all those appointments. And then we were able to find some sites. I got a couple at CVS, but right now it's almost impossible to find something. So we're just hoping that the good fairy comes down and gives us another allotment of vaccines.
That would be great. That would be great. Sue, did I see your hand up?
I did, but she brought up the SNAP thing. I thought she might forget about it, but she didn't. And I just like to say that this is one department that does not get enough recognition. And it's a stressful job for these people in Council on Aging. And I'm just amazed at how well they've managed to get through this pandemic. And they get a lot of calls, and they're going out to houses on their weekends when they shouldn't have to do that, but they're doing it. And I can't say enough for Barbara and how she works with this department and her staff. They just do a tremendous job. So they really need more recognition.
Thank you. I have a great staff, and we've been together for a long time. So we call ourselves the work family, but we're texting on the holidays and everything else. So it's really, we gel very good together.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other questions for Barbara while we have her? All right, Barbara, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
I just want to say I'm just a little tiny bit concerned when I hear that we have, hourly staff doing unpaid work outside of their work hours. I think it's great that we have dedicated staff who believe in the mission of their department to do that. But it just in sort of the longer term, in the immediate term, I think it's not really fair to have people doing that work without being fully compensated. But in the longer term, I think it's also a concern to keep in mind when we need to, when somebody retires and we need to replace them. I don't think we should rely on finding somebody who's willing to do the same. So
I agree with you. And that's why I asked the question if the outreach coordinator position had enough hours at 24, because it sounds like it's been a very, very busy position. And you get into some Fair Labor Standards Act problems if you have an hourly employees working and not getting paid for their hours. They're not salaried employees. So that is an issue that I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. I think that's something that we really need to consider moving forward. Go, Paul.
My question is, how much money are we talking about so that those employees can get paid if they're working more?
Well, right now we our part-time activities coordinator and our part-time chef, they're budgeted for up to 10 hours a week, but normally they don't always do 10 hours a week. So we're able to offset any extra hours with their pay. So for example, if Lisa were to work an extra hour during the week, I can pay her for that extra hour.
So people are getting paid for the hours that they're working. They're not working for free.
Correct. Except that sometimes on the weekend, they, if you know the staff, for example, Lisa, if she's out on the street and someone, an officer comes and asks her about somebody, she's going to answer it and not put in anything for it, because that's just her.
Yeah, but that's not something you are asking her to do as part of her job description. It's just that she has a very kind heart.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Doesn't matter whether we ask or not. When it comes to pay, you work, you get paid as an hourly employee. So you gotta be
Okay.
very, very careful about that.
Yeah.
Anything else for Barbara? All right, so Barbara, thank you very, very much for taking time out of your Saturday. The Finance Committee really appreciates you coming in. Great job on the budget, great job with everything you've been dealing with. And I know how busy, I know our Council on Aging up in the town that I work for right now has just been amazing, dealing with COVID and all the issues. So I applaud you and your staff and everything that you've done. So thank you very, very much.
And thank you guys for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that wraps up all of the department meetings. We handled the stuff on the end of the agenda. So before we adjourn, a couple of things. Evan, I wanted to hear from you and Mary on revenues and, oh, yes, Barry. Yes, Barry.
The assessor? Did we?
That's not on the agenda. Sue, am I missing something? Did I miss a meeting?
No, you are not. Barry, that's an old agenda. That was it wasn't actually a posted agenda. That was a schedule that we received and then we adjusted that.
Okay,
The assessor will be on the 20th.
okie dokie.
I'll send that to you.
Thank you.
I'll send it
So,
to all of you.
so Evan, revenue projections, what your plan is in terms of going through the budget, making adjustments to what Carter gave us, when you think you're gonna have a final budget to us. I'm gonna guess that it's not gonna change dramatically. Well, maybe other than the fire department, and maybe the police department on the cruisers, dramatically from what we have, what we've seen so far. But if you and Mary can just let us know what your plan is moving forward, I'd appreciate it.
Mary, do you want to talk about revenues and then I can talk about the process?
Yeah, sure. I created a new revenue projection sheet. I sent it to Evan Friday afternoon to review, and we haven't gone over it yet. I wanted him to, double check my numbers. But I couldn't work with Carter's revenue projection. It was really confusing. He netted things out that I would not have done. He put things like a cherry sheet assessment over onto the budget worksheets. The overlay was on the budget worksheet. So I kind of just, transferred them over to the revenue projection sheet. Really the only thing in your expense should be is what is going to hit the general fund budget. So I did clean that up, and Evan and I have to review it, and we'll go through, the line items. Evan wanted to disperse the extra 75,000 that was put in your reserve line. And so
We have a vacancy on the Finance Committee if she wants to join us, just so you know.
All right.
So I guess let me ask you this question then, Evan,
Yeah.
while you're looking at that. Is the revenue number that Carter was using to balance the budget that he presented to us, is it close? Is it far off? Are there going to be issues with the revenue projections going into the development of this budget? I mean, should we be worried about that?
No, it was really immaterial. It was, I think, like
Oh, okay.
48,000 difference, a shortfall.
Okay,
And,
that's good. That's good.
we can fix that with the, the estimated local receipts, or, I can reduce the overlay by, 25,000. We could do a hybrid of things for that.
Is the dependency on the override that we had a meeting, Evan, that was before you started. I know you were a guest that night, you were there. And
Yes.
there was a dependency on the override that we were talking about. What's the number that, Mary, that you're using? Is it the original number or the number that we said, let's go to that higher number?
The number that Carter used.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's still the same number.
yep.
Okay. All right, well, it sounds like revenues are moving along nicely, which is great. So Evan, process moving forward, what's your plan?
So we've done our first go through of the budget. We went line by line through everything in the budget. It was Mary, William, and I sat down and just really basically culled out anything that we thought was an anomaly or didn't just look right. The hard part, of course, is that there's history with a lot of this stuff that we're learning on the fly. So why is this salary line flat? Well, that's a union, that kind of stuff. So we were waiting for Mary to finish tying up the revenue, which she said on Friday, which I think is cute that she tells you all that I'm going to check the math like I have a say in it. Because if I find something, trust me, I'll be shot down like that, right, Mary? Mary runs that show. But I've been trying to meet with department heads, so I've given department heads all but 3, I think, an hour in the last 2 weeks. And they're bringing up issues that they have. So we're learning that on the fly as well. And then, some of them are, this line's off by $800, but we can make that adjustment really simply. Some of the discussion, like the fire department, well, that's a more in-depth kind of globalized approach that we have to really strategize. So I think that we're going to be making consistent changes as you're going through your process. I mean, we learned a lot, or I learned a lot just being on this meeting.
We did cover a lot of information today. They were good meetings with
this
the
was
department
great.
heads.
So, what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to incorporate these conversations into my work over the following week, make those adjustments. We'll do that, for the next 2 Saturdays. And we'll make those adjustments. Hopefully I've had discussion with the department heads ahead of time and caught everything, and I can push out something sooner, but at the very least, it's just going to be an ongoing process. We're going to tweak as we go and get us to where we need to be.
The fact that
Nothing
the town
major,
meeting,
though.
yeah, but the fact that the town meeting was pushed off until, what is it, June something
June.
or other?
Yep.
That sort of gives you a couple of more weeks or a month or so to really
It does.
get in here, which I think is great.
That definitely plays in our favor for sure.
Yep.
So we're, in years past, or the general process is, we deliver a budget and then we hash it out. This being kind of transitional, I've been very happy with everyone's ability to just work with us as we figure it out. And I think we're going to develop a good budget. The work product will be good. Might not be 100% perfect as we all would like, but generally speaking, I think Carter put together a good budget where if it had to go to town meeting today, it would be fine. We would have to make some adjustments later, but it wouldn't be catastrophic, which I think is what his goal was.
Yep.
And so I think, he did a very good job on that. I think now we have a little extra time. We're going to refine it. And like I said, the biggest changes we've talked about are in the fire budget, and we've already discussed those. And I think the money's there to make that happen. So should be okay.
That's good. Go, Paul. I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I had a question. Carter used this methodology, which is take the high and the low out, and I think average the others. Mary, when you did the revenue projections, did it come to where Carter was? Did it come high, low?
Well, I just took his numbers and reworked it into a new worksheet. I did not rework his local estimated receipt numbers. I don't have time to do that. That's something that would have been done in, October, November, leading up to that. Okay. I can certainly, I can send you guys all out the revenue projection sheet for you to review and, and give me your feedback.
Mary, the methodology that Carter used in developing his estimates, I think the finance committee was very comfortable with the process that he used. So if you're gonna stick with those numbers, I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but from my point of view, I was very comfortable with how he came about those numbers. So if that's, go Paul, is that what you're asking?
No, the reason I'm asking is there are going to be departments that are asking for more money.
Of course.
And the question is there room to make adjustments to meet those asks? That's what I'm just trying to get to. Because the budget that has been presented.
Yeah, within the capacity that we're using, yes, because he did call out, things, I think he put, extra money in the uncompensated balance. He put money in, there was a list of things where Carter called out money and dumped it that Evan and I can then pull from.
Okay.
Well, like the 75,000 in the FinCom's reserve fund.
That's going in the fire department.
You've already taken it from us?
Oh, yeah. Let's not keep using that like it's sitting out there. That's gone right away.
How much is that money put aside? What is it?
I don't know that I've gotten down to that final number.
Okay.
We will have that for you. Trust me, the way Mary and I budget, there will be no money in the budget that doesn't need to be there, right? I mean, our philosophy is we won't raise it if we don't need it. And then, we always leave, everybody leaves a little capacity in your insurance line, or everybody has their little pockets that they like that, because when you get to the special and you need to make a transfer, you need to know that you had a little bit of cushion should things go awry. But generally speaking, Carter was clear on where he was going to stick some money in the budget, knowing full well that we would have to make adjustments as we got closer to the end.
Where are you in terms of, is there hope to have union issues settled by town meeting, or is that a fall issue?
I don't know. We've had our meet and greet, and it was good because they agreed to go back to square one. So they had some negotiations with Tim, then they had some negotiations with Carter. I personally don't like to negotiate from other people's points.
Yep.
And so they were very keen to go back as well. So we're starting from square one in 2 weeks. So I think it's unlikely that we will have a final number before town meeting. However, what Mary and I have done in the past is, if we have our COLA number, if we get that done pretty early and pretty easily, we will start, tweaking the budget, knowing that that's about what we're going to have. I don't play the game with the union where I don't put it in the budget and then I hold that over their head later for some small thing. I just don't play that game. It's not good for staff morale or for your negotiating relationship. So if we all agree that it's pick a number, 2%, Mary and I will start banging a 2% into the budget now, because even if we don't ratify till June or July,
At least the money's there.
The money's there, and it's not.
So let me ask you this: you're doing a $30,000 study on salaries for your staff, and I would imagine that's mostly for non-union staff as opposed to union staff, because you're negotiating those salaries now with the unions. Does it make sense to hold off on any budget adjustments until that study's done, deal with it in the fall once and for all, and make it retroactive back to July? Does that make sense to handle it that way, or is that crazy?
It does. I think so, one, I have to work with Mary, and so I don't think she wants to do that.
Well, one, you have, the employees haven't received a raise this fiscal year. So then you're gonna hold it off another fiscal year.
Oh, I got your point. I didn't realize that.
So it's gonna be 2 fiscal years. They're already upset.
Yep. Nope. Understood.
And I think that whatever we can build into the budget will be obviously welcome and good for staff morale. I think that the majority of what we're going to find in the salary study is going to either be, probably not rectifiable with a COLA, right? It's going to be a different conversation. So, what Mary and I did when we did our last salary study, and this is very typical, we created our grid and step system. grade and steps, and then the COLA was negotiated separately. And I think we're looking to head in that direction again. And so we're hopeful to be able to do a number of positions. If we can do non-unions and union at the same time, we will do that. I don't think 30,000 is going to get us all the way there. So we're gonna have to look at that, but we're gonna try to do as much as we can. We've talked to the union about doing salary and classification, and they were on board with that, which is good. That's a good sign. So,
okay,
open to the conversation. So it's I feel bad. I don't have a lot of solid answers.
I think you gave us very good answers, Evan.
Okay.
You answered exactly what I was hoping to hear from you. So thank you very, very much for that.
The line items that Carter, if you go in the unclassified on page 77, he put in an extra 250 under compensation reserve. So that will cover, your union negotiation increases for next fiscal year. And then there's unemployment compensation and leave buyback for 110,000.
What page number?
I have page 77. Well, I
Oh,
printed
this, are you
mine.
talking about this right here?
Yeah, it's unclassified. There you go, right there.
Okay. So that's this line item right here, okay,
The
gotcha.
250 and the 110.
Down on compensation reserve, understood. Okay. Perfect. So that money will eventually be reallocated throughout the budget once you get your unions and you decide what you're doing with the department heads and everything else.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. Perfect. Any other questions for Evan and Mary? Both Evan, go ahead, Stu.
Of course I do, right? Logistically, Evan, if the town meeting is being moved until June, are the public hearings and the warrant open and closing changing, or are we logistically staying within that, our normal confines?
Oh, yeah, because we have to schedule our hearings.
I think we're staying within our normal confines.
Okay,
So we opened the warrant last Tuesday.
yep.
And so, you could make that call either way. I'm really trying to stick with your quasi-normal process.
Mhm.
Even though, yes, we technically have some more time to June, we can refine some numbers here and there. I just don't want to throw the whole thing into chaos.
That makes sense.
What is the
That makes
official date of the town meeting now?
You're killing me.
It's June, it's
I want
June
June
12th,
8th,
12th? Is it
Yeah,
Saturday or is it a weekday?
It's a Saturday.
So I think it's the 12th, but I could be wrong.
No, I think it's the 6th, right? Is the
Fifth? the week
graduation
before?
the 5th?
Fifth.
It's the
The fifth?
5th?
Yeah.
So that's the town meeting is the 5th.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So Finance Committee, we have a meeting Wednesday. I guess we're meeting with the regional school? The
Yes.
technical
Yes, in the
school?
library.
In the
Mhm.
library, okay. Irene, I won't be there. I have a Groton FinCom meeting that night, so
I will be there.
thank you very, very much. So we won't have any problem having a quorum on Wednesday. Go ahead, Sue.
I just wanted to know if Dr. Fitzpatrick is going to forward us his budget, because usually he brings it in. Could he send it to us so we could have heads up before we meet with him?
Yes, you will have it. I had correspondence again with Cheryl yesterday, and yes, you will have that. And you also, a physical copy will be in the municipal center at some point in time,
Okay,
just so you'll have it for your records. But yes, for the meeting, hopefully prior to the meeting, you will have it as well.
all right, thank you.
And then, thank you, Sue. And then Saturday at 8:30, we will have another public meeting to continue our reviews of the budgets. And then at the end of that, we will be interviewing the 3 applicants for the vacancy on the Finance Committee. That'll be past the 30 days. I did learn how to count after the fact. I forgot there were 2 shorter days in February, and I want to thank the Mars for reminding me of that on a daily basis that I can't count. So we will be meeting with 3 applicants on Saturday to do that. Sue, looking at the schedule on Saturday, if you want to tweak it If you think we have a little bit extra time in there that we don't need, if you want to try to do that so that we can keep people moving.
Yes,
We could take a look at that and then we can adjust that. And we can reach out to the applicants to let them know that we're gonna move that up a little bit, but I don't know. We'll have to, you and I can talk about that during the week. And if we adjust the schedule, we can adjust the schedule.
yes.
I thought today, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I thought today was excellent. I thought we covered a lot of good ground. The department heads really shine every time they come into our finance committee meetings. They know their budgets, they know their issues, and I think they do a great job presenting them to us. So Evan, you're getting to see the best from your staff because they always do a great job for us when they come in. So anything else from anybody? All right, I will declare us adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you guys are meeting Wednesday and I will see you all on Saturday.